This is The Gorge. This is a podcast where my friend Sara and I gorge ourselves on overanalyzing a game or game-related topic. This week we are
fucking Roll Tide! That's what we're fucking talking about for a minute, baby. I've been drinking vodka since, when did I text you? Like 2 hours ago? I've been drinking fucking vodka and reading about how fucking awesome football is. And fuck yeah, Roll Tide, because that's going to make this shit that comes next a lot fucking easier. Fuck yeah.
Oh my god.
I am grateful for two things this Thanksgiving, Benjamin. I'm grateful for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and I'm thankful for this opportunity to really, really shit talk Tales of Xillia 2, because that's what we're doing today.
Oh, it's been a long time coming.
Oh, fuck yeah, I'm so stoked.
I think we've made our vitriol for this game known since we did Symphonia.
But we haven't made it clear,
as to why.
And we haven't, I feel like we said, boy, we fucking hate Tales of Xillia, but I don't think people out there in, the internets really understand how much the two of us as a unit, as a duo of friends, hate Tales of Xillia 2, because I think it's gotten to the point where we're like a hate echo chamber, and I don't even mind, because
it keeps bouncing off of each other, and
No, Mom, why are you calling me now? We'll hold on. Let's
okay.
We'll just leave this. Hey, Mom.
Yep.
What? I'm actually doing my podcast right now, and I'm going to leave this conversation with you in it. So, hi. So, yeah. I don't know yet. There isn't. There's a Netflix TV show, not a sequel to a terrible movie. Oh, you would. Okay. Hold on. Alright, now you're on speaker.
Okay.
Hi.
Anyway, I love the Evanescence song.
Uh-huh.
It's so good.
I know you do. Do you like Ben Out? What?
I never even remember watching the movie, although I'm sure I did. This was like the beginning of the Jennifer Garner, Ben Affleck romance, apparently. It's back in 2003.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Okay.
Anyway, I was just watching it, so I was just calling to see if you had an opinion and if you had knowledge on whether they ever made a sequel.
They did not, but they did make a Netflix. They rebooted it for Netflix last year.
How funny, because I suppose because it was because he takes the law into his own hands, they probably never made a sequel. It got too politically incorrect.
No, it just wasn't very good. Most people didn't like it. Okay. Okay, Mother, I gotta let you go, though.
Okay, I love you. I'm just making sure you're fine.
I'm alright. I love you, too. Roll Tide.
Well, I love you. Roll Tide, baby.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Oh, we're off to a banging start.
Fuck yeah. I'm super, super drunk, so I want to keep all of that in there, too.
Mm-hmm. Sure, no problem. This is going to be a dumpster fire of a podcast anyway, so fuck it. Why not?
Fucking shit. What were we saying? That actually relates perfectly, because my mom was asking me about Daredevil. And that movie's a fucking dumpster fire in the way that Tales of Xillia 2 is a dumpster fire.
Oh boy. Okay. So I want to be fair and start off with the smattering of good things that this game actually has.
I hope you have a list.
Most of them are not plot related, so this will kind of be our standard non-spoiler portion.
But don't think, if you're listening to this, don't think hey, they say some good things about this in the non-spoiler portion. Don't think that means that this game is a good game or that you should play it.
Yeah, because you'll notice that this portion is 20 minutes long.
Mm-hmm,
and the rest of the podcast is an hour 50.
Where we talk about how much we fucking hate this game. So yeah.
Consider that ratio when you're like, should I pick this game up?
No, don't. No. Fuck no. Do not play this game. Don't do it. So yeah, tell me some good things about this piece of shit.
It's got the best gameplay in the series, bar none.
For sure. Like 100%.
Like, Luger is a fantastic character to play as.
Mm-hmm.
His art list is amazing.
Yeah.
The weapon switching mechanic is super, like, clean and natural feeling, and it's so easy to use. And
you feel super cool when you're doing it, which is, I always think, like, I think that's a really important part of all game design, is, like, how cool do you feel when you're doing a thing? And you feel really, really cool when you manage to do, because I've done it before, if you can manage to get, like, a 9+ combo chain with Ludger and every other member of your party, and then you chain all of that into a dual mystic art using a different weapon for each part of the chain, you feel really, really, really fucking good at video games by the time you're done at it. You're like, fuck yeah, I'm awesome at video games. Holy shit. You know?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if only the rest of the game. We're not talking.
So beyond that, like, everyone's character designs
are really good.
The party members' character designs, at least, are vastly improved over their X1 designs.
Yeah.
Every single one of them looks way better in this game than they did in X1.
Except for Gaius. But, I mean,
Except for Gaius.
Gaius still looks cool, but, I mean, Gaius' armor in X1 is really, really cool. Like, it's on another level of cool. But, I mean, everybody else just looks fantastic. I mean, I think the best design upgrade, it was almost like they felt so bad that Mila's design in X1 was so awful, they were like, well, let's give her 2 really good designs.
Yeah.
You know? Because both Mila's designs are super solid. Like,
yeah.
I know that they made X2, like Mila Maxwell, they made her boobs bigger, which is really, really weird. And if you look at the character, I mean, for real, if you look at the character monitor, like, they made her boobs bigger. That's weird. And I'm not going to get into that discussion, because it's just really strange. But they did make her boobs bigger. But even then, like, her, like, Maxwell outfit is so cool.
It's so good.
It's so cool.
It's so cool looking.
She really does look like a god now.
Yeah.
You know? Like, she looks like a cool fighty god instead of just like, whatever the hell she was wearing in X1.
Mm-hmm.
I wish the costume, you know how, like, all the costume, I think it was the one cool thing in X2 that I love, and I wish all games in the series could do this. They can't, of course. I just thought it was such a cool mechanic, was the fact that all of the costumes you bought in X1 could be brought over to X2.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was, like, super helpful, because, like, there's tons of really good outfit DLC in X1 that, you know, because they basically recycle the same character models.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wish... I wish it worked the other way, too, because I would love to put X1 Mila in one of those costumes, you know?
Oh, yeah, totally.
I don't see why it can't, but whatever.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess just backwards, whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, it's cool.
It's really cool.
We're reaching here. I'll give you one. I think all of the original characters that they introduce in X2 are cool characters. Like, I think Julius is cool. I think Rideau is really, really cool. I think Bakura is actually cool if he had been used properly. Ludger is like a nothing, but as an idea, he's very relatable. He's literally 20 years old with tons of debt and didn't get a good job. I think that's everybody in 2016 right now.
Yeah,
if you graduated
pretty much.
If you graduated college in, you know, the 2010s, congratulations, you're Ludger Will Kresnik.
Yep.
So he's super relatable in that way. But they just forgot to give him a personality. Whoops.
Yeah.
But as it
so yeah,
stands,
everyone, like, all of the new main characters do look really cool.
They're cool.
And they have cool bits about them.
Yeah, they just aren't utilized right. But I think they all have really cool. Like, I really like Julius as a character because he's very, you know, he comes across as, like, equal parts cold, but still really affectionate. And you're like, oh, that's nice. Now, if only they hadn't fucked him up. Like everything else about this game. Fucking shit. Fuck, I hate this game. Fuck, I hate this game. I need to drink more. So, I feel like there's other things that are, the Uppsala ruins are pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a cool dungeon or two.
But that's not much.
I thought we were gonna get like 20 minutes of actually good parts, but
I'm struggling right now.
they're like, yeah, that's about it.
That's about
The designs
it.
look great. The new characters are potentially interesting, and there's a few cool looking dungeons.
The battle system's really, really good.
Yeah,
I can't really overstate how good. That's like the only thing that keeps me playing Xillia 2 is how good the battle system actually is.
Yeah,
but
that's
kind of it.
Yeah, okay.
So we spent like 5 minutes, because like 3 of those were me talking to my mother.
Yeah. Alright, yeah, okay, so that's our review of Tales of Xillia 2. That was all the good parts that were actually worth talking about.
I feel like there's more, and I just can't. They're just not good enough.
They're not worth mentioning.
No.
So.
No.
Yeah, let's just,
Man, this game fucking sucks.
Okay, yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright. Non-spoiler part's over.
Man.
Here comes the fucking spoilers. Here comes the train wreck.
Boy, this game fucking sucks. This game's so bad it retroactively makes Xillia 1 worse.
Yeah.
Which is really fucking saying something, because if I said before, this game, Xillia 1's the best game in the series, kinda.
Mm-hmm.
And it somehow manages to make the best game in the series retroactively worse.
I think there's, what sucks is that because it plays so well,
yeah.
I hate this game more than I would hate other bad games.
I feel
like
that.
I've played shitty games before.
Oh yeah, same.
You know, but like
I played Shadow
when I
of the
play a
Hedgehog.
shitty okay, so the strongest belief I have in regards to video games and like what I think is the most important thing when designing a video game,
right,
is that rock solid gameplay needs to come before telling a good story.
Right.
Because the one thing that sets video games apart from any other form of media is that they're entirely based on interactability.
Right.
Or interactivity, fuck it, whatever.
Fucking who cares? We've both been drinking.
Yeah, so, like, the fact that Xillia 2 plays really well, and yet I still hate it this much, is a testament to how bad the story is.
And it's not just the story. I mean, it is the story. It's definitely the story. But there's everything else about it that just makes it garbage. It makes it just like, I can't even begin. It's just so bad. It's like, I'm really trying to find the words, because everything about the game, the story is what helped Namdai be so lazy in every other aspect of its creation that we just got nothing out of the deal.
What's crazy is that it's weird because Dawn of the New World came out before this.
Yeah.
And Dawn of the New World uses brand new assets for almost everything in that game. Mm-hmm. Like, it reuses the character portraits for skits.
But that's about it.
But all the character models, all of the area, like all of the towns, all of the world maps, even though they're the same maps and like the same, you go to the same towns and same dungeons and whatnot, they're all wholly recreated from scratch.
Yeah.
And like, that came out before this, and that's a spin-off.
And
that's not even like a proper sequel. That's like clearly a side story game.
And it's not in like the biggest injustice ever imparted upon a game that I've never even played, and I've heard it's not very good, like not great.
It's not a very solid game, but they put in the work for that one.
Exactly.
And they created a story with it it's kind of a bit of an ass pull, because they're creating whole new like elements of the lore that weren't present at all in the first one. But like, it fits better, and all of the characters still feel like themselves.
But see, that's the thing. That's the thing that, like, really blows my mind, is that Xillia 2 does all of that. It's a bunch of ass-pully bullshit that creates new elements of lore that were never present in the first one. But it doesn't do any of that other legwork that Dawn of the New World did. It doesn't make new maps, except for, like, 2. Mm-hmm. It does nothing new and interesting, and yet, for some fucking reason, people are absolutely bonkers. I mean, it's a really popular Tales game for some fucking piece of shit reason that I can never understand. Listen to me, if you like Xillia 2, I usually don't think people's opinions are wrong. You're wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
you're wrong.
In this case, you're wrong. Like, there's nothing worth saving here.
I mean, there is a cool idea somewhere in Tales of Xillia 2. It's basically Tales of BioShock Infinite.
Yeah. And
for all the same fucking reasons that BioShock Infinite is disappointing, so is Tales of Xillia 2. It's a cool concept that is completely and totally wasted by the developer's own laziness. It's an idea that just is presented poorly. There's no actual emotional depth behind it. I don't really like BioShock Infinite that much, but I think it has a better emotional hook than Xillia 2 has by a mile.
It all boils down.
And at least fucking BioShock Infinite 2 tried to be fucking original with its world building. Meanwhile, fucking Xillia over here, or Xillia 2 over here, just reuses 95% of its own goddamn maps. Fuck Xillia 2. Fucking piece of shit game.
What it boils down to, the biggest thing, like sort of the center of the spider web here, is that this game actively encourages you not to care.
It does. Xillia, I think my biggest problem with Xillia 2, and it can be boiled down in like one simple thing, for why Xillia 2 is so bad in comparison to Xillia 1. Xillia 2 fundamentally misunderstands the main theme of Xillia 1 and still expects me to believe that this is a true sequel to Xillia 1.
Mm-hmm.
It has zero understanding. I don't know who wrote this game, but I refuse to believe it is the same person who wrote Xillia 1. There is a 0% understanding of the major theme behind Xillia 1, which is, what are you willing to do to save people? And the maximum number of people. It's the what's the word? It's the
crux
lives
of everything.
It's the crux of everything. It is the lives of the many over the lives of the few. And it all boils down to that scene in Xillia 1 where Mila chooses to die because she thinks if she's Maxwell, she'll die, the schism will be replaced, and this war will be over, right? So that's why she chooses to die. So she makes an ultimately completely unselfish sacrifice in order to do the right thing. And then Xillia 2 fucking rolls around, Mila shows up, and she's like, fuck yeah, let's kill dimensions full of billions and billions of people, because that's our only fucking option. It's like the least Mila Maxwell thing I've ever heard in my entire life, and it shits on the character, who is, by the way, the best protagonist in the series as of Xillia 1. Fucking bullshit piece of goddamn garbage game.
This game... There's a point in the game where when you're first introduced to the concept of fractured dimensions, and they're like, in order to do that, you have to destroy them entirely, in order to preserve our own dimension.
Right.
And there's a point where I think it's even Jude who says it, where he's like, okay, well, we can't think of these as actual people. We have to not care that we're doing this.
Yeah, it's like...
And
what?
it's like... The game itself is telling you, okay, don't care about the sacrifice you're going through. Like, the fact that you're sacrificing other legitimate worlds. Like, alternate Mila exists for two reasons. She exists to die.
Yeah.
And she also exists to illustrate that the fractured dimensions can't just be discarded and that they're real people who live in them.
And yet, for some fucking reason... that idea is just thrown out the window as soon as she dies.
Yeah.
I mean...
So there's a... and when I rewatched this, there's something that really struck me about it on a second like go around with it after I've it's been a while, and there is that the idea of like these dimensions are going to die anyway, so therefore your actions have no consequence, can be an interesting plot point, and because it was an interesting plot point in Kingdom Hearts Recoded. So Recoded is basically the simple plot of it is that in order to uncover some secrets in Jiminy's journal, they digitize the contents of the journal, and they create like a digital avatar of Sora to kind of go reinvestigate the worlds that you've already been through, and kind of unlock some other secrets and like figure out a secret passage that appeared in the journal.
Right.
And so like late in the game, there's a point where you kind of have to go through it a second time, but like instead of it being like a true simulation, it's more like a copy of a copy, and that you're literally just going through it to gather information. And because you're going through it a second time, there's a character in the game that tells Data Sora, hey, you're just doing this to gather information. None of this matters. These aren't real people. They aren't, there's no consequences. When this is over, when your mission is accomplished, this world will be erased. Right. And, Sora being Sora refuses to go along with that. Because it doesn't matter if if it's going to be erased, or whatever like that. Like, he still is going to do the right thing. He's not just going to be cold and callous about this. And it creates this interesting sort of, like, meta question of, like, when you're playing a video game, are you doing it to accomplish a goal, or are you doing it to get invested in the story? Right. Because it boils down to, like, when you're video games, like, they don't matter. None of these things are real. You can, if you want to just go through to get 100%, go ahead, do whatever you want. Or you can get invested in the story and the characters and really care about the world and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's like an interesting sort of like meta narrative that the game did, and one that X2 completely disregards right off the bat.
I mean, as soon as the concept is introduced, yeah, absolutely. And it's like, it's so egregious because it's, like I said, it feels like 3 or 4, maybe 5 people wrote this game, and none of them actually sat down and said, hey, maybe we should discuss the theme of this game. Maybe we should, like, try and sort out what this game is actually about. What this game actually means. Nobody ever actually said, like, hey, maybe we should work that out. Because at the same time they're telling you, oh, well, it can't be helped. We have to destroy these fractured dimensions full of people living actual, fully realized lives. Real life, actual worlds. Like they have lives, they have backstories, they have hopes and dreams. That's the whole point of like Agria's secondary plot line in Leia's world, is that like, hey, there's a version of reality where Agria got over her shit and now her and Leia are friends. Isn't that cool? And then like they expect me to think that like you destroyed that world, and even more like the more I think about it, the more I think about like about that specific mission of all of these fractured dimension missions. You think about that one the most. So Agria meets who she thinks is her best friend, right? The person who saved her life and who made her realize, hey, maybe my life isn't completely fucking worthless. Yeah. She meets that person, they hang out, they have a good time. Agria kind of discusses her own problems, and she's like, man, maybe there is a hope for Olympius and Urisa Maxia, because you and I made this friendship work, and I think that's really beautiful. She was actually very affectionate towards Leia, and you're like, oh, that's amazing. And then you think about it. So then Agria walks off, and as soon as she walks away, they destroy the universe where she lives, effectively re-killing her. And so Agria has no idea at that moment that Agria has no idea at that moment she's actually talking to the person who's helping to kill her again. Yeah. And then Leia is supposed to be like the weird fucking bullshit theme they're trying to feed to me with that is that Leia is supposed to have learned something good from that, because they try to end it on a hopeful note, but at the same time, I'm sitting here playing this game going, you just killed, like, a bunch of people, including somebody who trusted you, and I'm sure if you told her, hey, by me destroying this thing, the world you and everybody you know, including the Leia that you're actually friends with, will all cease to exist, I'm sure if you told her that, she would fight you tooth and nail to make sure it didn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't think that isn't a little bit fucked up? That I'm supposed to buy that as some sort of hopeful narrative? Absolutely not. It is such a complete and total misunderstanding of how stories work. That
it's just like, it's you know, oh, there's hope for Rhysamaxians and Olympians after all. We can finally get along. Yay! Bye!
But what the fuck? So you're trying to tell me, man, there's hope for Rhysamaxians and Olympians after all. So there's no fucking hope for two different dimensions to exist side by side?
It completely undermines its own, like, message based on the entire point of the story.
It misses the point in a way that I have never seen anything miss a point so hard in my entire 28 years of experiencing stories.
I've never seen a game so hypocritical.
Absolutely.
Like, Jude's entire side story, which all the side stories are fucking garbage, by the way.
Fucking awful, except for Alvin's kinda, maybe.
Jude's side story is all about him trying to work out spy rights so that, you know, so that he doesn't have to sacrifice spirits anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah, oh, Jude, you don't like the idea of just wholesale, throwing an entire civilization under the bus? Oh, really, Jude? I would have never guessed that.
By the way you fucking act in this game.
You're just so gung-ho about wiping out entire realities.
Oh my fucking god. I mean, I can't even believe nobody sat down and looked at all of these different stories that had been written, clearly by separate writers, and nobody said, man, there's a lot of cognitive dissonance going on here. Like, I just... You're so right, too, because, I mean, Jude's whole story is about him trying to work out spy rights and shit, but the reason he's desperately trying to work out spy rights is because Gaius gave them a time limit saying, like, hey, if you don't figure this out within X amount of years, by the time, like, all this free-flowing mana dries up, I'm gonna rally my armies and fuck up Olympias again, and you can't stop me. Because my goal is to protect Rhysamaxia. And Jude's whole impetus is like, hey, you don't have to sacrifice two worlds for them to one to be okay.
Yeah.
Which is, again, the whole fucking thing about Xillia 2, is that you're just willy-nilly sacrificing different universes with people who, again, have their own lives, hopes, and dreams like normal people. That is literally the purpose of Mila's fractured self.
It's the easiest way to make this game entirely better and to not fucking do this would be to completely get rid of the part of destroying fractured dimensions. If you were to just preserve them, or like your job, like early on you figured out a way to stabilize them instead of destroying them.
Right, but it keeps you from ever going back to them again, so it's not like...
Yeah.
So it's not like Leia can just drop in and visit Agria, who isn't dead. It's still like a bittersweet, like, oh, this is the last time I'll ever see you kind of thing.
And like a lot of them end on like dour notes anyway. Like there's one where you have to kill Noctigal again, or the one where you kill Wingull.
Yes.
And it's like, it would be way more impactful if it was like, okay, we have to do this thing. We have to kill the king. And then they wonder, like, well, what's this world gonna be like once we leave? Like, we saved it technically from being completely wiped out, but, like, what kind of state did we leave it in as a result?
But any state is still better than non-existence!
Exactly! And, like, you would have had way more impact, and you would have felt worse for doing, like, a horrible thing if your actions would have some consequence. Like, you know, in the one where you have to kill Noctigal again.
Right.
And or not kill him, but like you fight him because you have to destroy the ring.
Right, or the hairpin thing.
Yeah, the hairpin. And so it's like you do that, and like as a result, you know, Noctigal is this guy who was, you know, in mourning and stuff like that. And so like you have to leave that world in that state.
Yeah.
And so now when Rowan's like, oh, if it was just this one thing, we could have been friends. It's like, it's not like, yeah, but he's gone now and his whole world's gone, so like whatever, who cares?
Yeah, it's like you who fucking cares anymore? There's no. It's just so egregious. I can't get over it because it's so. All of these different examples you present me of Wingle's world, of the world where Wingle is king because Gaius abdicated the throne, or the world where Noctigal is not a crazy person and he's actually pretty happy. These are, I mean, especially the one with Noctigal where he is not a crazy person and is actually pretty happy. Something about that one really, really fucks me up because again, Rowan is so happy to see a version of reality where Noctigal was his best friend when they were young men, and they trusted each other with their lives. That's the whole point of the lore, was that they were super close and they always believed in each other, and they were like had Rowan actually married Noctigal's sister, they would have been actual brothers. And so he's so happy to see this Noctigal who's doing well and who is still sad that his sister is gone, but he's actually a sane ruler. You know, you see it and you're like, yes, that's the kind of interaction you really wanted to see. And then he's still just like, you're supposed to think that that Rowan is just okay with destroying this universe where a version of his friend actually found happiness.
I know, it just would have been way, way better.
Yeah.
If you didn't wipe them out, because it wouldn't completely undermine everyone's character development.
Absolutely.
It wouldn't make this story feel pointless. And you wouldn't have just discarded all of this potential.
Exactly. It could have been... That's
what this game is made of. This game is made of just tons and tons of wasted potential.
It is. Again, the characters in this game, we haven't even gotten to the new characters, because, I mean, I'm so hung up. I probably could talk for the next hour just about how bad the theming in this game really is. Because it misses the mark so hard of what Xillia 1 is about, and what Tales games in general are about.
Yeah, that's the ultimate part.
Exactly.
Is, like, when you're playing a Tales game, like, we've talked about this before, like, there's one overarching theme of Tales games.
Right.
Which is, like, whatever the case is, the party is never satisfied with the system as it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whatever, you know, method of existing there is, or whatever culture exists as it is, they're never happy with it by the beginning of the game, and they're actively working to improve it.
By the end.
The simple fact that a party that's already gone through this once before never ever thinks to question this clearly evil man who is clearly got secrets out his ass
and is obviously not, I mean, visibly not a good person, because like you said before, he's CEO Ganondorf. Yeah,
he's, you know, a corrupt businessman. They never ever think to be like, hey, maybe there's a way besides just wholesale wiping out entire realities.
Right, full of literally millions of people. Yeah. My God, I just can't. Because again, you're right, and I'm right. We're right. Sorry. Yeah. This game completely misses entirely what the Tales series is about, and you can't tell me that it's like some sort of subversion, because fuck you, that's not how subversions work. Yeah. It's just, I'm sorry. And even if it is a subversion, it's a bad subversion.
Yeah, it's not a good one.
Madoka is a good subversion. Fucking Xillia 2 is not a good subversion. Xillia 2 is just atrocious in its idea of turning the Tales theming on its head. And you get because it still tries to feed you at the end of the game. If it was like downer ending for real, not that I would like that, but if they had just gone full downer ending, and been like, you know, if nothing else in this game had changed, right? If you had left in the killing all the fractured dimensions bullshit, all of this bad writing, I still might have been able to find it in my soul to forgive it somehow. If they had ended it on a note of, man, we did a fucked up thing, but it was for the better, right? But they didn't do that. The perfect ending tries to feed me some sort of hopeful ending. And where it's like...
some sort of bittersweet bullshit that is so eye-rollingly forced.
Exactly. Where it's like an older Elle who's like, let's go build our future. And you're like, motherfucker, you are not selling me this saccharine fake-ass nonsense. I'm not buying it. Not for a fucking second.
Yeah, don't give me this utter bullshit.
Absolutely. If they had acknowledged at the end of the game, we did some fucked up shit to get here, you know? But it was our only option. If they had exhausted all the other options, and if they had like really looked for another way, and there was no other way,
that would also be better, because at least then they'd feel like the characters that we know.
At least they tried, you know? And if they had not acknowledged at the end of the game, like, man, we did a fucked up thing, but it was all we could do to survive, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you would be like, man, that's fucked up. But I get it. Good for you, Xillia 2, by proposing the idea that maybe sometimes you've got to make hard decisions. But that's not what happens. That's not what happens.
No, what happened is they were just all gung-ho about wiping out realities, and at that point, you're like, I don't care anymore.
Absolutely.
I don't... This game is just... because once you figure out what this game is going to be like, I immediately lost all interest in seeing it to the end.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because, like, I didn't care about these characters anymore.
Because they don't feel like the actual characters from Xillia 1 anymore. I've said it 1,000 times. The bad ending of this game is the best ending in the game. Because at least you get the opportunity to kill these fucking out-of-character robots that have replaced the Xillia 1 cast. You know? Like, at least you get a chance in a boss fight to kill every single one of them. And that's the only good part of Xillia 2's bad ending.
It straight up feels like they wrote this game for different new characters, and then had to awkwardly force their script into the mouths of existing characters.
Honest to God, I could, if they had changed nothing about Xillia 2, not a fucking thing, if it had been a completely original game, right? Where none of the Xillia cast appears, if it was called Tales of Dimensionia, or what the fuck ever. If it had been called that, you could almost forgive it, you know? You could be like, man, they're doing something different. It's fucked up and stupid, but at least they're doing something different.
But instead we get this, where it's just garbage.
It's garbage. It's 100% garbage. You know? There is nothing redeeming about Xillia 2's plot. There's cool ideas in there, because I love time travel, and I love alternate universes. I think those are cool concepts.
Dude, my favorite comic series outright, or existing, like, recently, is The Exiles, which is all about dimension hopping.
Exactly.
And exploring new realities, and it's really, really cool, because you get to explore, like, what if this happened? What if that happened?
Right! And that's what we should have gotten in Xillia 2!
Like, what sucks about it is that, like, every dimension we visit in the game is just so recycled garbage.
Oh my God, it's exactly the same.
Yeah, they recycle character models, they recycle
maps,
you know, like dungeons and towns, and it's all, and it's like every single one, like, basically boils down to like, oh, well, this is different. Like, oh, this person is a king now.
Right.
Like, and it doesn't give you enough to explore what that's like. Like, in the dimension where Wingle is on the throne,
right?
The town should have been in shambles.
Absolutely.
There should have been people in the streets. Windows should have been boarded up. There should have been, like, riots breaking out. There should have been people trying to break into the castle.
Yes, because it's implied by talking to the townspeople that Wingle is a bad king because he has no control over anything because he's just a wishy-washy man who doesn't understand what it takes to rule, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole point of kind of the story that's being told here, is that Wingle does not have the hey, there's that word from Xillia 1, the conviction to rule properly that Gaius had. And they never take advantage of that. I mean, everything about Canvalar is exactly the same. Mm-hmm. Exactly 100% the same. I mean, the whole point of like, the cool... even Bioshock Infinite did it fucking better, for God's sake.
Yeah, because when you go to Bioshock Infinite, like, each time you travel to a different reality...
It gets worse.
Yeah, Columbia is even more of a shithole.
Exactly. Which is the whole point. That's the whole appeal of what makes it cool. Is that you're like, oh, well, it's like a butterfly effect thing, or for want of a nail,
Yeah, exactly. Or the one where Noctigal is a good king. We should have explored around Fenmont, and it should have been a bustling metropolis,
Yeah.
We should have seen evidence of him being a good ruler, and we should have seen the prosperity and stuff. The only time we ever see anything like that is in the Xillia ruins, where we see that Spyrites are around. No. And even then, not enough, and it's only the one area.
Yeah, well, no, Spyrites are around, not in the Xillia ruins, but in L's original timeline. But I get what you mean.
Yeah, L's original
It's okay,
timeline.
there's a lot of bullshit in this game, and you get it all confused after a while.
Yeah. Because everything's the fucking same.
Everything's the fucking same, because they don't fucking change anything in the maps at all.
So, I want to get the Xillia ruins out.
Oh, Jesus, can we? Because it's the only time Xillia 2 is genuinely cool.
Yeah, like, after slogging through all this, we finally get to the Xillia ruins. And we're like, oh, well, okay, this is new. This is a brand new area that looks fucking awesome.
Has cool music.
Yeah, it's got really cool music. The new assets they created for it are, like, really interesting looking.
There's an actual, unlike in Xillia 1, there's an actual puzzle in the dungeon. Yeah. It's not a hard puzzle, but it's just difficult enough that you're like,
you're like, okay, yeah, all right, this is cool. And then you get to the central part, and you uncover the lore about the society of people who digitize themselves to preserve their lives.
Cam Clark is there, and it's pretty fucking awesome.
You also get a hint of that, like, you're not the only group of dimension hopping, adventurers,
oh
like,
my
going
God,
around.
You're so right. I feel like we've been shit talking this game for like the last week, like in like preparation for this podcast, and like I completely forgot about that because that is such a cool concept. And again, nothing ever comes of it.
Yeah, and then you're like, okay, this has to lead to something, because the other ones were kind of basic and they were kind of the same, kind of samey. Like, okay, well, this is brand new. They're making a point to show that this is entirely new. This is unique. Like, no other world has this. Like, okay, all right, yeah. Where are we gonna go with this? Where are we gonna go? Oh, nowhere.
Fucking nowhere.
Oh, it's like you wipe it out, same as everyone else. You never encounter another group of dimension hoppers.
Fucking shit.
It exists for one reason, and that is to show that you can't have two copies in the prime dimension.
And it exists to let Cam Clark get a fucking cameo. That's it.
Yeah, but like, you're given all of this unique lore and dialogue and this cool plot element of, like, when you hear about this digitized civilization and you get to talk to individual people in it, and they're like, this is our hope for a future here.
And they existed 25,000 years. 25,000 years before the main story. That's awesome.
And you're thinking, like, okay, well, they're going to, I don't know, take the hard drives with them, or, like, they're going to realize that this is where they're going to realize that they can't go around destroying dimensions because they hold too much potential, and they're going to discover something new, and they don't.
Yeah.
it's sacrificed the same as any other dimension, and all of that potential and all of that story and all of the cool dungeon that we just went through is all for naught.
You would think that with the main cast having access to a super smart AI named, Odin, you would think that, like, having access to Odin would allow the cast to finally have an opportunity to be like, we need another option to save all these dimensions. A way to do something new, a way to actually make what we do matter. More than just killing all of these people off, because by doing this, you've effectively not just murdered all of the people currently existing in that dimension, you've also murdered anybody who could exist, like the people of Thor who had a chance to like be reborn in a new world, and it was completely squandered to what?
Yep.
Show another cat disappear?
Yeah.
That's it?
To put the nail in the coffin that, yep, Alt Mila's gonna die. Yep,
that's fucking
that wasn't completely obvious when we first fucking met her.
Yeah, thanks. As if that wasn't like a fucking... Like, they haven't been really drilling that into our heads since the word go, like some fucking piece of shit.
Like, it wasn't... Like, oh, here's this copy of Mila. I wonder if she's going to, like... How is the real Mila going to appear? Alt Mila's going to die.
Yeah, wow.
Like, that's clear, obvious. Like, yeah.
Fucking obvious.
This character is going to die. The minute she left her main dimension, like, yeah,
her fate was basically sealed. Absolutely. Because, the whole point is that, like, she's like a more tragic Mila. She's had this hard life. I really did, by the way, we'll get into this in a minute, but nobody in the history of the Tales franchise has ever been disrespected more than Alt Mila, who deserved better.
Oh my god, yeah.
Who deserved better, because she is a great... In all of the bullshit that Tales of Xillia 2 does, alternate Mila is an awesome take on a character we already knew.
Yep.
She was an awesome way to really go, hey, for want of a nail, what would happen if Mila was raised under different circumstances? Like, that's what it was, is if you took a character who was raised... the original... I guess we're going to talk about alternate Mila now. Why not?
Yeah, go ahead. Fuck it, whatever.
Fuck it, whatever. Fucking piece of shit game.
There's no order. There's no pattern for this episode.
Yeah, you're right. The point is that the Epsilon ruins are a squandered potential, much like alternate Mila. There's our segue, sure.
Yep.
But the idea is that the original Mila was raised under, like, the ideal circumstances. She was deeply beloved by all of her villagers. She was held in the highest of regards. She was treated well. She always had the chance to just be God. She was always God. From the moment she was born, she never had to eat. She's never had to sleep. She was treated like she was treated very well. And as a result, she had all the confidence she needed to do what needed to be done.
Yeah.
Xillia 2's one truly shining moment is that they took the epitome of a character who radiates confidence because she was raised under the ideal circumstances to have that confidence instilled in her from the moment she was created. They took that idea and they flipped it on its head in a way that I thought was actually really cool. People will shit talk alternate Mila. Hey, sorry, again, you're wrong. She's actually really great. Because I really feel for alternate Mila. She was raised in the worst possible circumstances, unlike the original Mila. She wasn't a god. By the time you meet her, she's lost the ability of the Four because Exodus has been eliminated. So the Four have gone back to the actual Maxwell, leaving alternate Mila as just a normal human girl who was raised in a village that understood that she was like the avatar of Maxwell, but maybe not like actually God. And
yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
And she's raised and brought up by an abusive figure in her life, by a muse who's even more fucked up than the actual muse.
Yeah.
And so what you get is this person who thinks, like, I should be something more, but I can't get over all the shit that's been done to me to be something more, right?
Yeah.
And so because of it, you have this really cool, unique take on a character we already know.
Yeah. And again, like, so she gets all this, and it's all completely, again, squandered and disregarded.
Pretty much as soon as she dies, she's very rarely brought up by anyone else other than Elle.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Which is fucked up.
It's so... She doesn't even get to conclude her character development.
She doesn't even... Her side story doesn't even get, like, a real, like, emotional conclusion. You know?
And, like, okay, I get it, like, you know, if you want to make a character's death tragic, then you do that exact thing.
Yeah.
Where you disregard, you know, before a character can change, before a character can get their dues, they're killed off. Like, that's, you know, a standard way to induce more tragedy. But for this, it didn't feel like that. And again, it felt more like just lazy writing.
Because... Where
they're like, okay, we reached the point in the script where the real Mila needs to come in, so time to die, and that was it.
Sorry. Because I think the biggest point, and somebody on the subreddit for Tales, made a really good point, and it stuck with me for a really... Or it might have been Tumblr. I can't remember which one, but whoever you are, hey, thanks, you changed my view of why I think Xillia 2 is even worse than it already is. Somebody made a really good point in that the original Mila's death was 100% a choice, right? When she died on the Zenithra in Xillia 1, that was 100,000% a choice. It
was her sacrifice.
Yeah. She could have, I mean, everybody else was willing to put in the work to stop the Lance of Kresnik, and it could have meant their lives, but it also might not have, you know? Like, they could have all still survived. Who knows? But they were all willing to put in the work, and then she decided, even though she didn't need to, even though everybody else was willing to do this work, she didn't need to kill herself, but she said, there's no need, I'll never forget it because I love that scene so much, she said, there's no need for everyone else to risk their lives, you know, because she is Maxwell, and that is her duty. That is why she exists. She exists to protect humanity. Which, again, is why Xillia 2 completely and totally fucking misses the point of Mila Maxwell. Her duty is to protect humanity. And that includes all of the friends and all of, even her enemies. Because, again, the Chimeriad are her enemies at this point. And so she chooses to die. Alternate Mila was never given that choice. She was forced into it. Yeah. It was either die and let the original Mila come back, or live and let Elle die. She had no choice in the same way that the original Mila had. And it completely shits on the idea that she had, like, a noble sacrifice, you know? Mm-hmm. Like,
it's not a sacrifice if you don't do it, like, with, you know, your full intent. Like...
Yeah.
There's no meaning in a sacrifice that was made for you.
Exactly. The choice was made for her. And it doesn't feel like she had any agency in that choice at all. There was no, you know... And again, if maybe they were trying to make some kind of point, I don't fucking care, because it was handled so poorly, you know?
Yeah. If they were trying to make it... You know, we talked about this before, like, just by ourselves, but, like... Every moment in this game that's just like a downer point, it doesn't feel, crap, I just had the word, but then I lost, like,
it doesn't feel like substance?
Yeah, exactly, it all feels shallow.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it feels like the game is telling you be sad.
Yeah.
You know, like, real tragedy in a story exists when it contrasts a happier moment.
But there's no happier moments in this fucking game.
Yeah, it's a game that exists entirely where every conclusion is more melodrama and more sadness. Because you know, I get it. Like, okay, yeah, there's the point where you see Elle after she loses alternate Mila, and she is very upset, and she's, you know, lashing out at the other Mila.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, or the point where after Victor dies, and she, like, lashes out at Luger, and, you know, and she storms off like that, and, like, yes, those are sad moments, you know, but, like, at that point, I'm so used to it that I didn't care anymore.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I feel bad for Elle, but I would feel worse for Elle if she had some modicum of happiness beforehand and it was taken away from her.
Yeah, but there's none of that. I mean,
Yeah,
after Alternate Mila dies...
Yeah, when you meet Victor, yes, there's a moment for like 3 minutes where Elle gets to be happy, but then Elle falls asleep, and then she witnesses her dad trying to murder her surrogate dad.
Yeah.
So, like, it's...
After Alternate Mila dies, there is literally no moment of levity in the whole game after that moment. Like...
There's nothing to contrast the sadness.
Yeah.
It leads to just more and more downer points, to the point where there's even a name for it. It's darkness-induced audience apathy.
Is that what it's called? Is that the name of the trope?
Yeah, where it's the point where that's a TV trope for it, where it's like, at this point it's not going to get any better, so there's no reason for me to be invested in this anymore. It's the problem that like some things like Game of Thrones have for a lot of people.
Yeah, myself
where it's
included.
like, well, I know it's not going to get better, so why should I keep bothering?
Exactly. It's the exact same problem that Game of Thrones has. And people will be like, well, it's a different take. It's more realistic. I mean, maybe. Sure.
There's a difference, but there's a fucking difference between realism and just being, like, trying to bum everyone out all the time.
Yeah,
it's
for sure.
the reason why I completely, like, laugh anytime someone says, oh, if you like The Last of Us, you'll like The Road.
Oh, God.
Because, like, The Last of Us is a game that has a lot of contrasting moments of levity and happiness with tragedy. Whereas The Road is just sad from the word go and doesn't get any better.
Oh, God. Cormac McCarthy needs to go see a psychologist, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't build an entire game out of tragedy.
Yeah, 100%.
Because, by the way we talk about how this matches BioShock Infinite, like, even to the point where but it gets it wrong, like, to the point where the ending is the exact opposite. Whereas, like, we talked about this with BioShock 1 and 2. The best parts about BioShock 1 and 2 is that you go through this dreary, horrible, nightmarish world, this decaying city full of mutant people who have lost everything, and this collapse of the society, and then by the end of the game, if you get the good endings, you're rewarded with a peaceful, happy life for your protagonist. Jack gets to live a long life with his 7 daughters, that he saves,
his 25 children.
Yeah. Eleanor gets to live on the surface with her dad's spirit guiding her.
Yeah, it's great.
She's free from her mother's control. She's free to live as she wants. But there's no moment like that in X2. Like, okay, so Elle gets to live her life, but, like, that's the epilogue. The actual conclusion of the story is that Luger dies for no reason, to sacrifice all of the fractured dimensions for no reason. So it all feels so pointless.
And I mean, it is ultimately pointless, because to me, God, I feel like I should have made notes, because I just feel like I'm just hopping from topic to topic, but fuck it.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. This game doesn't fucking matter. Nothing in this game fucking matters, because it's fucking awful. But, like, to me, the ending of the game is the most... It seems to be, like, the biggest fuck you of the whole, like, this whole fucking shebang is the perfect ending. Even the good ending is, like, a big fuck you in a way. Because the deal is, and we've talked about this before, but for anybody listening at home who wants to try and tell me that I'm wrong about Xillia 2, I'm not wrong. The deal is that upon completion of Origin's trial, the creation of all new fractured dimensions ceases, and humanity wins, and Origin will continue to purge the miasma from people's souls. Yay!
Yay!
Right? But then, okay, if that's the case, by making the wish to destroy all the fractured dimensions, right?
Yeah.
Ludger disappears into a fractured dimension that is immediately destroyed. But at that point, he's completed Origin's trial. He's won. He did the thing.
Yeah.
He did it. Congratulations, dude. You win. You succeeded. I'm so proud of you, Luger. So he shouldn't have disappeared. And in the good ending, it's implied that he's running out of time because it shows that he meets Laura, and then the door closes, and, you know, there's that ominous tick, 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 ticking, like the clock is ticking for all of this to repeat. But all of this can't repeat because fractured dimensions aren't a thing anymore because Luger won. So, like, none of this makes any sense. Because, like, Luger shouldn't have disappeared because fractured dimensions shouldn't have been a thing at that point. He couldn't disappear into a thing that couldn't be created anymore. I just have so many questions and none of them make any fucking sense. None of this game makes any fucking sense.
It would have been worth it if he'd used his wish for anything logical at all. Like, we're told the land of Canaan can do anything. Like, it's a place where any wish can be granted. Mm-hmm. And you're thinking while you play this game, okay, you know what? Fine. We have to sacrifice the fractured dimensions at this point. Like, we don't have any choice.
There's no other way.
This is the only method that exists. Okay, fine. Alright, well, at the very least, Luger will be smart enough to use his wish to say, I wish there was no miasma, or I wish there was no corruption for souls, or I wish all the fractured dimensions were stabilized, and, you know, or I wish that this whole Origins trial didn't exist at all, and you're like, okay, well, at the end of it, it'll be worth it, because they'll use their wish to restore everything back to the way it should be, and everyone will get to live, you know, it'll be fine.
Yes.
And then, no, he uses it to just wipe them all out.
And then he dies.
Yeah.
And...
Okay, well...
Great.
Alright, thanks, game, for, you know...
Not trying at all.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. The game didn't try.
That's it. The whole game didn't try. You say this a lot to me, and it really does stick with me every time you say it, because it really does... I mean, it really does drive home the ultimate failure of Xillia 2 at the very end, when it could have redeemed itself, maybe even just a little bit. Even with all this bullshit that we've talked about, maybe it could have redeemed itself just a little bit. You've said this a lot. When you have an omnipotent wish-granting device that can do fucking anything, you should make it do fucking anything.
Yeah, you cheat the system.
You fucking cheat the system. You find a way. You know, you
Go
tell these
full
assholes.
Dragon Ball on this.
Add an and, is what I'm fucking saying, you know? I want this to do this and this, you know?
You've got some smart guys. You've got some crafty guys with there.
Yes.
Jude and Alvin could have put together Jude's intelligence and, you know, attention to detail, along with Alvin's ability to cheat all the time. And fucking, they could have written a master list of one single wish that contained all the wishes they needed to.
Exactly.
You know? They could have said to Origin, give us 5 minutes, we're gonna write it down.
I would give anything to see that version of the game, where, like, Origin's like, what is your wish? And then Alvin is like, time out, I'm calling a huddle, you know?
So he groups up with everyone, and they work it out, and they write up a list, and then Jude pulls out a scroll, and he unfurls it.
And honestly...
And Origin is like, wait, no, you can't. I'm not done. You hear a period, buddy? Nope.
Honestly, I feel like Alvin is such a fuck, and Jude is so smart, that they could have probably condensed everything into, like, one perfect, short sentence, and it would have done it all, you know?
Yeah.
Because I can think of 1,000... Yeah, I can think of 1,000 different wishes that would have been perfect.
Yeah.
You know?
Not this bullshit that we got.
Not the bullshit
you can't,
got.
You can't have it both ways, okay?
No.
You can't be like, these fractured dimensions are whole and real and realized, and they are, you know, legitimate places, but also don't care about them. They need to die for our dimension.
You can't convince me that the good guys are good guys when you're doing shit like that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I do not think that the good guys in Xillia 2 are good guys. That's why the bad ending is the best ending, because they all fucking deserve what they get in the bad ending. You know? Every single one of them.
Exactly.
Because they're not the cast of Xillia 1, that's for fucking sure.
And it all goes back to you know, other things that do this right, like Exiles, which one of the reasons I love that comic so much is because all the main characters have to reel in with the fact that these, like, you know, early on they talk about how they don't feel like the real world, and how, like, there's one character who struggles with this a lot because he's hailed as one of the greatest heroes of all time in his world, and he goes to all these other worlds where no one knows who he is, or like he has to do horrible things in order to keep the world alive.
Yeah.
And he's like, he goes in this rant where he's like, I want this to end. I want to wake up so this nightmare is over and I can go back to my real world where where everything's fine and none of this happens. And another character has to be like, no, this is real.
Like, this is the real world. Yeah, I feel that, man.
They are all real worlds, and you have to learn to accept that.
Yeah.
And, like, you don't... And I keep hammering this home, but it's such a sticking point with me.
Yes!
That it just feels so bad.
It does, right? Like, that is ultimately what it boils down to, is that it just feels so bad. I feel bad. Because you don't feel like a good guy, and yet the game keeps trying to do all these, you know, like all the skits are like wacky hijinks, and you know, all the side stories are like wacky hijinks. Meanwhile, you're killing a dimension full of people, and they just use the dimensions as like backdrops to tell you some sort of fucking Aesop moral story.
Exactly.
But when you think about it for more than 5 fucking minutes, you're like, no, this is not... You're ending these universes.
Yeah, you'll get dimensions where at the end they'll be like, wow, really makes you think, huh? And I'm like, no, it doesn't, because that dimension doesn't exist anymore.
It's horrifying.
Nothing you did mattered in that dimension because you wiped it out at the end. I don't care that Jurgen felt betrayed in that dimension by Alvin.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter, because he's dead now.
He just doesn't exist anymore now. I'm sorry. You have squandered your ability to teach me some kind of moral lesson by making the cast totally okay with killing off a dimension full of people that you have established previously, of people with fully realized life. I can't get over that. I just can't get over that hurdle. That why would you introduce a character? Why would you introduce alternate Mila who is there to show? God, I feel like I'm talking myself in circles and I don't care. Why would you...
This character exists to show that dimensions are fully realized and they exist and they're solid and they're not, fakes.
Yes.
And then you just kill her off like you kill off every other dimension, and you completely undermine your entire point. If, or on the other hand, it's either you have to preserve the dimensions, or you go the opposite and you create the fractured dimensions to be weird and corrupted and,
blatantly fake.
You could make a really interesting set of dungeons out of dimensions that are falling apart at the seams.
Because they are obviously, if they had just been straight up obviously fakes. Okay.
Yeah. So places that are full of monsters instead of people.
Yeah.
Or places where there are holes in reality.
Yes, because the deal is that the reason alternate or fractured dimensions exist, according to the canon of Xillia 2, is that a Chromatus user, which is what Julius and Ludger and Bakur are, they're the ones who get the cool armor, a Chromatus user overuses the Chromatus, and much like Madoka, because this game cribs a lot from Madoka, and that was intentional, I'm pretty sure, like Madoka, you overuse your magical ability, and in doing so, you are so infected that you have to be quarantined from the rest of the world, and an entire dimension forms around your corruption, right?
Yeah.
If they had really played off of that idea, and made it been like everything that exists outside the bubble, everything outside the bubble of that previous Chromatus user's, like, experience. Like, let's say, for example, that Chromatus user had never known a world outside of Drellin, which is the city near El's house, and Olympias. Okay? Let's say he had never seen any other part of the world except for those two worlds. So you go into this fractured dimension for some reason, and you, for some story reason, they go, well, hey, let's check out Sherrilton in Rizomexia, right? It shouldn't exist. If you could have sold me that idea, that not only would have been cool, I totally would have been okay with the destruction of these fractured dimensions, because that would have really sold me on the idea that these are not real people, and they are just weird constructs of a mind that only knows, like, half-truths.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
And then you could have even had something where you could even still had alternate Mila, and she's, like, the only survivor of one of these horribly corrupted dimensions.
Yes.
You know, or like she is trapped in the simulation herself, and she's actually fully realized instead of being a puppet or a fake construct of a person for Maxwell bullshit reasons, but whatever. You could have still had that, and you would have created a more interesting game.
Exactly.
Not necessarily a more interesting story, but a more interesting game as a result, because you'd allow us to explore these weird and bizarre realities.
Exactly.
Instead of it just being the same environment with a filter over it.
And, oh god, that fucking filter's so ugly, by the way.
Yeah.
That fucking filter is hideous. That almost blocked it out.
How do we know that we're the prime dimension? Because you don't have a shitty filter over you.
Yeah, you don't have a shitty Instagram filter over you. That's pretty much it. I'm just so... You're so right. And the game is just so bad for it. Like, you either should have gone one way or the other, for sure. Like, either make the fractured dimensions, like, legitimately fake, or make them so real that you cannot possibly sacrifice them willy-nilly. What
give
are
me one
the
second,
other?
actually. I'm gonna go shut my door.
It's okay. Go for it. We're waiting. I'm waiting. I'm really, really drunk. I'm like really... I've had like pretty much an entire bottle of vodka.
Yeah, we're watching my sister's dog too, so that's what the barking is
cute.
Louder than normal.
That's cute though. Other dogs in the home. Hooray.
Yeah.
I was telling the podcast audience that I'm pretty drunk.
Yeah. So the other like groan worthy part of this bullshit
There's so many.
is like the side stories are so bad.
They're so bad.
Okay, like, if you're gonna crib Persona so blatantly, fucking do it right.
Please.
Because, like, the social links in Persona are great because they all tie to a central theme. Mm-hmm. When you in Persona, like, Persona 4 is the one I have most experience with, but, like, Persona 4, like, they all tie... Every single social link ties to the overarching theme, which is society's perception of you versus what you think of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they all explore that in some way, whether it's pressure from parents or from school or, trying to look put together in front of your son or whatever it ends up being. Mm-hmm. It's all about that. The side stories in X2 are just fucking all over the place to the point where, like... I don't get what the lesson for a lot of them are. Like, what's the lesson for Gaius is?
Oh God.
Like what is the overarching outcome? Like,
I don't know. I feel like we could probably devote an entire podcast to. I told you this before. In like the top 5 like worst things that the Tales franchise has ever done to me, the entirety of X2 is number 2. Number 1 is just Gaius's side story. Because
it's so bafflingly bad.
It is
because,
so
like,
bad.
Is the idea of it like he has to learn how to make friends? Is it that he has to learn that as a king he has things he can't like
do or
like the law, he can't have absolute control over the law or like what's the lesson he's supposed to take from it?
Because I don't know. I really don't know.
I watched through it twice, and I'm still just like, I don't get what was it supposed to accomplish?
Like, Gaius is, like, all of them are not great. Like, none of them are really that good, you know? Like, even the ones that try, that you're like, oh, this is good, then they do something fucking awful at the very end, and you're like, oh, never mind. Like, you were telling me, like, Elvin's isn't bad, and then I was like, hey, remember how they managed to fridge Pressa again? And then it was like, oh, wait, never mind. And then it's like, well, you know, Mila and or Jude's isn't bad. I'm like, hey, how about the defensive queer stereotype of Asuka with the horrible flaming gay lisp voice where you're just like, oh god, I've never cringed so hard in my entire life. You know?
So what's interesting about Alvin's is that, like, the whole thing with Pressa, like, it doesn't even tie into his story.
Yeah, it's just kind of there.
Every other chapter is about his relationship with Jurgen and, like, him trying to be a legitimate businessman again and kind of, you know, going up against, like the idea of, like, well, when you're a businessman, you do have to make tough decisions. You can't be entirely honest. Yeah. But him also trying to compromise that with his desire to be as legit and honest as possible. Yeah. And so, like, you know, and then in the middle of it, there is a point where he has to go and kill Pressa again.
And why? Like, why? Why? And yet somehow in all of these, Gaius manages to be the worst.
Gaius is just terrible.
It's awful. It is, and I'm not even saying this. I mean, Gaius is my favorite character in this fucking series, except for Mila. But, and this is not even me, like, being a Gaius fangirl right now. This is me just being, like, as a person who's played a lot of Persona, and as a person who just enjoys good writing, like anybody with a functioning brainstem. Gaius is just bad. Because I don't know what it's about. I don't know what I'm supposed to be taking away from it. It's super cringy, because this guy is the leader of a powerful country, so why is he hanging out with a bunch of high schoolers? College students? Yeah. Who are these kids? At no point do they ever make me actually care about Yuri Lowenthal and his band of fuck-ups.
Yeah. Like, I don't even know how old these guys are supposed to be. Are they, like, kids? High schoolers? Are they college students? Like,
I don't know. I don't know what's going on with any of them. And I don't really care, frankly.
Yeah, that's the other thing, is I just plain don't care. And, like, it's so...
Establishing new characters who are just, like, there... Like, I think... One of the stupidest things you can do, especially in just, like, what is basically a side story, is to establish a bunch of characters, by the way. There's, like, 4 of them. 2 of them are actually important, and the rest are just, like, mooks. But, you know, even then, 2 new characters that exist just in a side story is too many, you know? Yeah. Because Persona doesn't do that. Persona has no... I mean, like, Adachi's has the old lady in Golden, but she's really... But that's only one... And
those characters really more serve as like plot devices to move the actual side story's protagonists, like, move their story along.
And you're never expected to care about the old lady in Adachi's social link.
You're focused more on how other characters within the world affect that character's development.
Exactly. Like the little kid in Kanji's, like the little boy in Kanji's.
Or the 2 girls in Yosuke's, or, you know, Risei's manager, even.
Yeah, and they're not really there to be characters, but the characters in Gaius's are supposed to be characters, I guess, because they have names and faces, but I don't care about any of them. Like, why wouldn't you explore Gaius's relationship with anybody else?
Yeah, why not his relationship with the party?
Yeah,
you know, so Muses has her dumb one about trying to be, like, oh, for fuck's sake. Okay, I want to just...
No, let's do it.
I hate Muse in this game.
Oh god, it's so bad. She's so
bad. I hate Muse in this game. I didn't even like Muse that much to begin with. Mm-hmm. I fucking hate her in this game. Mm-hmm. Because, again, this game tries to make you care about a character that you have no reason to care about. Mm-hmm. Because Muse slaughtered a lot of people in X1. A lot of innocent people died at Muse's hands, and the party just seems to be cool with palling around with her.
Yeah, it's really weird. Like, it's really, really weird. Like,
if, and again, it's that, we keep saying, like, if. If is the key word here. Like, if Muse's story had involved her actually trying to make amends for what she's done and trying to reconcile that action, like, would have been way better. But no, hers is about she tries all these quirky schemes to befriend the party and try to be Mila's big sister. At no point does she ever express any remorse for the things she did in X1.
If you want to be friends with the party, I think step one is pulling Jude to the side and being like, hey, sorry I killed all those people and, like, you know, mocked you, like, in a really horrific way after your girlfriend died, and I treated you like nobody loved you. Like, maybe step one of making friends with the party is apologizing to Jude and Leia for manipulating another one of their friends to go and murder them. Like, maybe apologize to Alvin for being like, hey, sorry I contracted your desperate, horrified, traumatized self to go murder
maybe apologize to Elise for slaughtering her village.
Yeah, you know, like...
You could start there.
You know, maybe...
But no, hers is about being weird and quirky and having a little childish voice in Luger's head.
And it's just weird, because it doesn't...
It's so... It's eye-rolling.
It is. It's like, oh look, Muse's funny and quirky. Yay! The only good thing that came out of Muse's fucking side quest is that face she makes at the end of it that's really funny looking.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, and even then, it's just kind of like out of context, but it is funny. Like, I mean, it's genuinely funny to look at. You're like, haha, that's awesome. But even then, I mean, like, in context, you're like, wow, this is really, really stupid. I mean, like, step one of making friends is apologizing to the people you've hurt.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. It would have... That's the thing, is like, all these things we're talking about fixing, they didn't take much. They take, like, 2-3 lines of dialogue.
Exactly.
And then I feel like, okay, well, I'm okay with it now.
Yeah, I would have been, you know, it's not like I'm asking for, like, a massive... Honestly, in a perfect world, I'm asking for a complete and total overhaul of Xillia 2's entire existence.
But to bump it from actually being, like, playable...
Yeah.
It would take, like, 2-3 lines.
No, I mean, not a lot. If you could have just been like, yeah, it takes, you know, Muse apologizing. It takes somebody saying, well, the fractured dimensions aren't really people. They're just, like, weird... They're weird specters.
If Bakur's line was, like, you might see faces you recognize, but don't be fooled, you know, by this point the dimensions are so gone that they're just basically constructs going through the motions.
Yeah, exactly.
And then when you get dialogue like with Leia and Agria, you know, then it's kind of more impactful that, like, well, this is, you know, even if it's just like a soulless thing, you still get like a glimpse of like what could have happened.
Yeah, but you're like, this isn't like a real person, this is just the projection of somebody else's idea of what's going on, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And like that would have completely fixed everything. Then you can be like, yeah, these dimensions need to go because, you know, it's kind of the idea of like, you know, I have no mouth and I must scream.
It's like some Chromatus users like really fucked up dying fever dream instead of like an actual universe that just exists and is full of people who are real people. You know, instead it's just like strange ghosts. You know, in that case, you're like, okay, well, these universes have to go, and it's sad, but I mean,
but
you're
not putting
real.
them out of their misery.
Yeah, they're not real. You know, they're just
like at no point in the actual game do you get any idea that like these dimensions are on the verge of collapsing, and that, you know, you're doing the old Yeller thing of you got to put them down now before they have to suffer years of their worlds falling apart. You know.
And the thing is, like, they couldn't do that. That's the fucked up thing, is because Elle exists. Elle is a fractured person.
Yeah.
She comes from a fractured dimension, and the only reason she's special is because she's the key of Kresnik. And that's it. And it's just like, oh my god, they've written themselves into a corner where they can only do stupid shit. And if they had spent 5 minutes proofreading their fucking script, we wouldn't be here speaking for an hour and 24 minutes about how much Xillia 2 sucks dick. But god, here we are, and we're gonna keep going for another 30 minutes, folks, so hang on to your assholes.
Alright, so the other, like, sticking point is, speaking of Elle, and her thing, like, God, Victor is so pointless.
God, is he not?
Victor accomplishes nothing in this game. Like, he literally shows up a single time after the opening cutscene.
And then dies.
And that's so that you can kill him.
And that's it. There's no...
If Victor had been a mysterious recurring villain, or like someone that repeatedly pops up more than just Elle talking about her daddy, you would like it would have been even way better. It would have been way better. You would have had more impact. But like,
yes,
I it took me until this recent playthrough to realize that Victor doesn't show up at all until you arrive in his dimension, which. His dimension also doesn't make sense because it's the only one where you time travel.
Yeah.
Every other dimension is set in the present time, like in the same time frame as the main timeline, main dimension, but like with just slight variations. Like the one with Agria and Leia clearly takes place after, the events of the first game,
right?
Because she mentions being pulled up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, it makes no sense. Like
They all take place concurrently, except for Elle's, for whatever reason. Elle got to travel back in time.
Or forward. Yeah. It's... I'm having such a hard time. Like, really... I feel like I still haven't adequately expressed how bad I hate this game. But you're right. Victor does nothing. Victor accomplishes nothing. Victor's only thing is to send Elle back in time. And the idea is that he sends Elle back in time because he knows Elle will bring Ludger to him, which is great, except, he just is there to die. He's just like Mila. He's alternate Mila all over again. Except we don't even get to know him that well.
He exists to die to make Elle sad.
Honestly, here's the thing, and we were talking about this again before this podcast came up, and by the way, we talk about these things a lot before. We really hash this shit out.
A lot of these are points that we've talked about before, but it's worth bringing up again verbally.
Exactly. I think it could have, again, it's all for just an if. If Ludger had been a voice protagonist, not a silent one, who had just a normal personality, the way that Jude and Mila, who were protagonists in X1, if he had like a personality like that, where he was not a silent protagonist, and if he had been allowed to just be a character, not a player avatar, then Victor only showing up once could have been impactful. Because, as it stands, by us knowing nothing about Ludger, we know nothing about Victor.
Yeah, exactly.
If we had known about Victor, or if we had known anything about Ludger as a human being, or as a person, then Victor showing up would have been like this moment of, oh god, this is what Ludger could become.
Yeah. But because he's a silent protagonist that exists as a player avatar, I don't care what he could become, because he's not a character. He's it's like...
He's a cardboard cutout.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, in this day and age, so, the silent protagonist is, a classic of video games.
Right.
And they existed back in the day because of hardware limitations. You couldn't have, audio. You couldn't have, script, recorded dialogue in your games. You couldn't have as complex of a story. So you create a character who exists as an avatar of yourself so that you can feel more immersed in the game. That's what Link is. That's what the Pokemon protagonist is. That's what even
Chrono.
The early Fallout protagonists are.
That's what Chrono
The other
is.
reason you would have a silent protagonist is because your game includes a lot of choice.
Right.
Games like, the later Fallouts, Fallout 3 and New Vegas, or Persona. You know, like, your character needs to exist as a way because the creators want you to get immersed in the world and not so much the protagonist, which is why Link has never been voiced before, or why Mario doesn't say a lot of things, why the Pokemon protagonist says nothing, is because you're meant to take on that role and explore this world.
Right.
Or it's a limitation of there's so much choice in here that we can't realistically have your character speak because there'd be triple the dialogue.
Yeah, and that's why Fallout 4 kind of fails, is for that reason. And because of it, you know, they should have, that's the purpose of a silent protagonist, is to have, like, you can have this dearth of choice and it doesn't affect development costs. Now with Xillia 2,
like, it tries to give you choice, but your choices don't really end up mattering a whole lot.
Not until the very end of the game.
Yeah, and all they do is, like, they exist mostly to boost your relationship points with the party members. Which, fucking, they're doing that in Symphonia. And, you know, that was entirely voiced. Luger shouldn't exist as a player avatar because this is a Tales game, and Tales games are based more on having well-written party members and characters. And so, like, it doesn't make any sense for Luger to be in this role. And you don't get enough choice for it to be a cost thing, because you can buy his voice dialogue.
Exactly. It makes no sense. It's like the Tales franchise is built in the idea that, okay, maybe the stories aren't super awesome. I mean, Abyss is obviously a exception to the rule, but generally speaking, the stories in Tales games, they come second to what is most important in the franchise, which is awesome character writing. That is literally why the Tales game has any success whatsoever, is that maybe the stories aren't awesome, but you are there for the characters. It's why Xillia is still kind of popular, despite it not having a great story. It's why Symphonia, which is kind of childish in retrospect, is still super popular, is because the characters are memorable and likable. That is the purpose of the franchise. So, a silent protagonist goes against everything the Tales franchise is about and fucks it up. Exactly.
It completely undermines it, and it gives you this point in the game where the other characters have to awkwardly dance around the fact that Luger never talks. It's the exact same problem that Final Fantasy X has, where they have to awkwardly dance around the fact that no one can actually say Tidus's name.
Yeah.
You know, and what I want to say this, like, what I love is that Persona does it too, but what they do is they'll have a character address the protagonist, and they just won't have the voice actor say their name.
Yeah, it's
like,
so
the name
smart.
will still be written out, but the line will end before that point.
Yeah, and it's
like
brilliant.
that's like a clever way of getting around it.
Yeah,
you know, you're still addressing the character by the name that the game arbitrarily decided that we could enter in, but, you know, they're still voicing the dialogue and still getting a way to use it. And with Luger, you don't get that, because, you know, Beasley will talk to Luger about things, and then you have to have Jude or Mila talk for Luger.
Yeah.
Because he can't.
Yeah. And it goes...
You never get a one-on-one conversation with anyone with Luger, because he can't talk to them.
Which is the whole point of Tales games, or these one-on-one moments. That's, I mean, a huge trope of the franchise, and it's really fucking missing in Xillia 2, is that at the end of the game, before the final boss, all of the characters pair off, and they have their own little 2-on-2 or 1-on-1 conversations with each other.
Yeah.
And Xillia 2 doesn't have it.
Yeah, you get to talk about, like, what they've learned or how they've grown. And that's the other sticking point about this game, is because you have a silent protagonist that's supposed to be a player avatar, you don't get the core part of Tales games, which is watching these characters grow up. Like, fucking Vesperia had more character growth in it than the party members in X2 get.
Yeah!
Because they already did it!
Yeah!
They already had their development in X1!
And they didn't come up with an interesting enough. Like, there's the side stories exist to be like, hey, look, these characters are still developing, but the side stories aren't good enough development.
Yeah. Like, okay, like, oh, Leia's still developing? You mean she's learning how to be a good writer? Like, okay, that can be an important thing, sure, you can wrap a story around that, but like, this is a game that exists in a world of magic and destiny and, you know, gods and humans and spirits, and you're going to tell me that Leia's story is about learning to write good?
Like...
Or that Elise's story is about learning her pen pal is a fucking bitch?
Elise's story is about a 13-year-old girl realizing that politics are horrifying? Sorry.
Yeah.
That just doesn't really work. Like...
It's not something that I care about, which sucks because we didn't mention it because it's plot reasons, but like, Elise is the only character to come out of this game better. No, not only. There are two characters that come out of this game better. And that's Elise and Ivor.
Which is shocking.
So what's Ivor is interesting.
Oh man, Ivor turned out great, right?
Because, like, when I saw Ivor, and I saw how much better he was in this game, as, like, a member of Comic Relief, it reminds me of one of my favorite bits in Mystery Science Theater, where they watched, one episode they watched the movie Prince of Space, which is a horrible, schlocky, Japanese, you know, sci-fi space movie.
Right.
And the villain in it is the Phantom of Crankor, who's this guy that, unfortunately, thanks to the cheap prosthetics, kind of looks like a chicken man.
Oh, good.
So, in the next episode, because it's part of, like, a storyline they had going on, the next episode, they're watching a movie called, Invasion of the Neptune Men. Which is, again, a schlocky 60s Japanese film that, unfortunately, uses stock footage from World War II propaganda films.
Oh, no!
In it.
Oh, no, that's really unfortunate.
Which is very insensitive and unfortunate, and, you know, as a result, like, out of character, the writers hated this movie a lot because of that sort of callousness. So there's a point where the characters are like, in one of the sketches, they're despairing the fact they have to watch this movie and it's still going on, and they get invaded by Crankor from the previous film.
Right.
And instead of being, like, intimidated or annoyed by him, they're, like, overly relieved to see a familiar face in this trying time.
Yes. That's
and, like,
awesome.
That's exactly what ended up happening with Ivor. Where you're, like, where you have these characters who have become shallow robotic puppets who lack any of the familiarity or depth that you've got used to in the first game. And then you see Ivor, who is still being a butt monkey goofball.
But he's so much better.
Is getting no respect and is being a total asshat about everything. But it's so welcome at this point because I don't know what it was about it, because he's acting pretty much the exact same. So I don't know if it's just the different context makes it better or what. But, like, I was actually laughing at Ivor being a dumb fuck.
And because in the first game, I mean, we fucking hated Ivor. I couldn't fucking stand Ivor. But I think what it is that Ivor kind of seems to have really come into his own as just, like, instead of being like, Lady Mila, I'm obsessed with you, he's really just more like a goofball who's just trying to, like, find where he should be in a world without Lady Mila. And you kind of understand that, because it's like, oh, well, he didn't find his purpose the way that Jude did at the end of X1, so he's still kind of flailing. And because of it, you know, he just comes across as, like, again, I bring this up a lot in this podcast, he comes across as very genuine in a game full of completely fake robot people.
Yeah, and you know, he's... And the other thing is, I kind of just realized this is, like, in this game, his goofball, you know, dumbassery is actually a benefit to the party and not a hindrance like it was in
Yes.
X1.
He helps.
Yeah, he drops in to give Luger his new gear or to fight in certain points. And like
the part in is it Jude's story where he shows up to help fight the golems?
Yeah, the end of Jude's story.
Yeah.
Has him showing up to back Jude up.
And it's
that's
a lot of fun.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, I'm glad Ivor's here, which is weird coming from X1.
Right? Where you were like, no, Ivor, go away, you're ruining everything, like always. And he just is such a welcome breath of fresh air, because it's like his development was a positive thing, and he goes from being a hindrance to being helpful.
Which is another example of, like, this game fucks up the writing for these characters so bad that it makes a bad character good.
Exactly.
Like, you fucked up so bad that you took a character that we didn't like and made him good.
You made him like likable and normal,
endearing and fun.
And
like, I would rather have Ivor in the team than like Gaius or Muse.
Oh fuck, right? Like, Ivor is actually a fun character in this game.
You know what? Yeah, give Ivor the side story about meeting a bunch of high schoolers.
Oh shit, right?
Because,
Holy
like,
shit!
He wouldn't know how to handle having a bunch of weird friends, and it would be kind of interesting to see how he reacts to hanging out with normal people.
Because he was raised to just be like Mila's acolyte or her handmaiden. And like, you know, it'd be this cool, interesting mix of just like, instead of a grown-ass man hanging out with a bunch of teenagers, I mean, Ivor's Jude's age. Like, that's the deal, is that Ivor is also a teenager, and he's never had friends his own age. And so it would have been cool. It's like, hey, you know, welcome to Olympios, where you can just kind of hang out with some other dudes your age, and they get up to some shit, you know?
Or it would have been actually endearing to have a character like Ivor be like, okay, what kind of schemes can I cook up to be the hero?
Yes!
Because he would be a character, because Muse is supposed to be this kind of more mature person.
Yeah.
Who would have more of an understanding of reality. And that's why it comes off as so awkward for her, is because, like, she should know this wouldn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
But a guy like Ivor, who was kind of an antagonist in the first game and, like, doesn't understand a lot of things, would try to... Because he's a showy guy, and he would, I need them to like me, so I'm going to, you know, come up with a trick that will make me look to be the hero, and, like... Yeah, Ivor would have been way more welcome than the other two. Right?
Like, he just seems like a more interesting addition to... And he would have been like a real breath of fresh air. You know? Because the way they handled Gaius and Muse's stories are especially awful. But both of their stories, if you had smooshed them together somehow, would have been a really cool side story for Ivor, because he would have fit into those plot lines. And Ivor is just so damn likable in this game. He's funny, he goofs off with Elle. One of the truly fun points of Xillia 2 is that part where Ivor and Ludger are posing together in the background, and you're like, aw, goofy kids, you know? You're like, oh, that's fun. Yeah. It's fun. There's the point. Is, hey, maybe every now and then, Xillia 2, try to be fun. You know?
Yeah.
Try to be fun in a way that makes sense.
All I can think of is that point in the Flink reviews where, he talks about when Jar Jar reacts to getting to go back to Naboo. Mm-hmm. And he, like, has this, like, freak out where he starts yelling and you know, hollering around. And he's like, oh, that's right. I'm watching a movie with characters in it.
Yeah.
Like, after all of this boring, stilted dialogue and dreariness, like, oh yeah, I'm actually trying to have an experience here.
I'm actually supposed to like these characters. Ivor comes out so likable at the end of this game that you're just... And honestly, I feel... I'm sad that he doesn't really get more screen time, you know? Yeah. I really wanted him to show up more. And I mean, he's in the game a pretty decent amount. I wanted him to show up more because he's so much fun. You know, he goofs off with Elle, and he still gives, you know... Like, the one part that's actually kind of funny at the beginning of the game is when Ivor tries to spring a surprise attack on Jude, and Jude just punks his ass like he's nothing.
Yeah.
And they're both like, hi, Jude. Hi, Ivor. You know?
Yeah.
Like, that's
exactly.
funny. It's amazing what you can do if you just remember that these games are supposed to be about likable characters.
And, like, there is another, you know, the other character comes out of this is Elise, really.
But that's only because, like, her side story kind of sucks.
Yeah. But Elise as a whole, like, it's great because, like, she has a completely different personality in this game.
But it doesn't feel forced. It's just nice to see, like, hey, it's been a year. She's come out of her shell.
So, yeah, well, like, and, like, you know, it's a year is different. When you go from, like, 15 to 16, it's not a big difference, you know? But, like, 12 to 13 is a pretty big step up.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, you would expect her to develop and be more outgoing and be more, you know, fun and smarter about a lot, you know, more worldly about how things happen and whatnot.
More willing to kind of just to speak for herself and be, you know, God, just seeing her show up, and her voice actor did such a brilliant job of going from like, to being...
the change in her voice from being like, you know, quiet and meek to actually sounding more like a regular teenager was great.
I mean, it was handled so well, and she comes across as so, like, it's still the same girl, but she just comes across as so much more just happy, you know? Not even more mature, she's just happier, and you're happy for her, and her storyline is so fucking awful, and, you know, like everybody else's, but at the same time, it's just so nice to see Elise get that development that she sorely needed. It's like, you know, I didn't want to mention it because it's plot points. So I didn't want to, you know, mention it earlier on. But just like, you know, like you said, Elise is one of the better written kid characters in the first game, and like in the second game, she's like the only well written character, to be honest. And I mean, like, you're right.
I know you don't like the reappearance of Tipo.
I don't.
And I completely understand why, because yeah, it is kind of a rollback of her character, and like that's one of the things, like a lot of these things feel like rollbacks.
Yeah.
But to me, that's not one of the sticking points I have. And I mentioned it to you yesterday, like a couple like theories about it is that like Elise keeps Tipo around because that way she can kind of get away with saying weird things.
Yeah.
Because it sounds better when it comes from a puppet.
Yeah.
But I thought about it, and as someone who does have anxiety and like depression and, you know, ADHD, I kind of see it as like how do I put this? Just give me one. Let's see. Like, Tipo is more like medication than like a crutch for her.
Yeah, I feel that.
Like yes, she doesn't need Tipo, and like, you know, she's learning how to speak for herself.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with keeping him around to help her out. Yeah. Like she's very clearly grown as a person.
Yeah.
And like there's no doubt about that. But like I completely understand if she still does feel like she kind of needs someone around, like something like Tipo around to help her out.
Yeah.
And like I know it's like, you know, it's kind of like a weird sort of realistic approach to it, but I completely understand like you like don't think that Tipo should have been around at all, because it kind of undermines the last cutscene bit in X1.
Yeah. I just see it more like, I get where you're coming from for sure, but I just see it as like from like a story standpoint, it just seemed like, oh, well, Elise, you know, when I was a child, I thought of childish things, but when I became a man, I put away my childish things.
Yeah. And I totally get that. Like, yeah, you're supposed to be like, well, she doesn't need Tipo anymore, and they had to bring him back because he's the mascot character, and she needs him to fight, and they need to come up with some reason to do it.
I think
I get that.
I think it's just like, I mean, I obviously, it's like, yeah, she's a kid with some serious social issues because she couldn't even speak to the researchers at the Labari Institute without Tipo to do it for her because she was such a poor, traumatized little mess of a child. And I get that, obviously. So yeah, of course. But just as, like, it kind of undermines the end part. I mean, all of but it just goes back to how Xillia
it's one of those things where if X2 were a better game and didn't constantly do this, you would see Tipo and be like, okay, that's fair.
Yeah, you'd be like, yeah, that's cool. But it just seems to be like all of X2 is about kind of destroying everything that we learned in X1.
Yeah, exactly.
So having Tipo there, if the rest of the game had been good and Tipo was there, I could have accepted Tipo. I'd been like, oh, okay, well, she still needs Tipo every now and then because one, yeah, Tipo is her caster, or is her casting device, and two, like, yeah, she still, like, can't always talk for herself because she's still awkward about it.
It's only been a year. You can't expect a complete 180 in her personality in a year.
Exactly. But as it stands, the whole game seems to be about a fundamental misunderstanding of the theme of Xillia 2. So having Tipo there just seems to further that. You know? Where it's just like, oh god, they've missed the point for every single part of Xillia 1. Like, how do you do that? How do you do that? That's my, like, if like, the rest of the game had been good, I wouldn't have cared. But the rest of the game isn't good, so, like, I just find more reasons to hate this game, and I never run out, honestly. We've been talking for an hour and 50 minutes.
And I still have two major points I want to talk about.
Oh boy, bring it on. Let's just do it. Let's just get it all out.
Okay, so the first one I want to bring up is, oh my god, have you ever seen a more blatant progression blocker in a game ever?
Than the debt mechanic?
Oh my fucking god. So here's also the backwards thing about this. The debt mechanic is like my favorite part of the game. Because it's the part of the game where I get to ignore the story and just get in fights.
You just get to play. The game, and it's fun. You don't have to think about the story. You don't have to think about how shitty all these side stories are. You're just like, yeah, fuck yeah, let's go out and fight some big... Because, like, the best part of Xillia 2 is its fight mechanic. And the best way to clear the debt system the fastest is to go fight the big monsters, right? Like,
yeah, and get the gold or do the jobs that, require you to get in 10 fights to get 10 wolf assholes.
Yeah, exactly. And, like, if you didn't even do...
Go get me some spider scrotums.
Yeah, or, some pig nipples.
Yeah.
But, like, if you didn't even want to do that, like, the fastest way to clear the debt mechanic is, on the job board, there are, like, they don't call them giganto monsters in this game, but they're the big...
But whatever, they're the big boss monster.
The big fuck you boss
monsters.
Them. That's the easiest way to make money in the game if you just want to clear, like, boss fights, right? If you just want to clear the debt mechanic and move on with the story, the easiest way to do it is just to go fight these big monsters, because you get a big payout for each one that you beat. That is the best part of the game, because those bosses are all unique bosses. I mean, some of them are recycled from X1, because everything in this game is recycled from X1.
Yeah.
Some of them are new and unique. Good for you.
But they're fun, and they're challenging, and you get to play the mechanics.
And there's different bosses have different shticks to help you beat them. You know? So they're kind of challenging and fun.
Yeah, they encourage you to try different things, and, like, it's really, really fun. And that's why, even though if in any other game, if I saw a progression blocker as obvious as that, I would throw the game in the garbage.
Absolutely.
Like, the only, I mentioned this here, the only other one that I've seen that's just as blatant is in Mother 3, and but in Mother 3, it's the cutest thing ever.
Because those ants are really cute.
Yeah, which it's the point very early on in the game where you're prevented from going to a different area because there is a trail of ants walking across the street, and Lucas doesn't want to accidentally step on them while walking.
And it's cute and fun.
And and it's not a massive debt system that is just like, no, stop everything you're doing, go grind.
It's so
horrible the way they implemented it too. I think the worst thing in a long laundry list of horrible things that Xillia 2 did, one of them is breaking it up into chapters. Because the chapter system just sucks.
Yeah, which again is something that no other Tales game, like, to my knowledge, does.
No, none of the ones I've ever played do a fucking chapter system, and I've played ones that you haven't. And I just... Why chapters? Why? Because it so just breaks up the action, and it's awkward, and you're not having any fun the whole time, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh look, well this thing happened, end chapter, and you're like, okay.
Well, like a chapter system exists in points where, like, you would realistically stop, like, a book.
Yeah.
You know? Or like other games that are designed in stages. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, like a Fire Emblem game might be was broken up into chapters because you're going to different maps for each mission.
Yeah, but Xillia 2 is still like kind of like an open world game where you can go to any point in the map.
Yeah, it's designed as a free-flowing RPG game, and like...
that just randomly has chapters.
Yeah. Again, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what makes, like, the game good.
Yeah. Like, they just don't get it. Like, somehow they just forgot, like, everything that made Xillia 1 good. They're just like, fuck it, let's just flush it all down the fucking toilet.
And you know, I understand people hate Nova. Nova is very low on the list of reasons this game sucks for me. I didn't mind her that much. I did actually really like that her mood reflects the current mood of the game.
I mean, that's cool, yeah, for sure.
That was like the really nice touch where after you can yell at her for calling after alternate Mila dies, and then for a very long time
she's really bummed out.
She's very hesitant to call you.
And she's always like, sorry to call, you know?
Yeah, and she's very quiet, and she's very apologetic for the random calls she gets, and she, you know, when you do pay off her debt, like, her response to that is trying to, you know, ask if you're okay. Like,
yeah.
So, like, I get that she is an annoying character. Like, you know, she is that standard, you know, Japanese character who's bright and bubbly that flows pretty well in you know, the East, but here in America is more grating than anything else.
Yeah, we just don't have character tropes like that here in America.
Yeah.
We just think, like, why is she so hyper? Take a fucking chill pill, you know?
Yeah, she's the klutzy whatever character that's popular in Japan but doesn't quite fly over here. And just like, so yeah, I get that, but like, yeah.
Like, she's annoying. Yeah, like, Nova, like, I'm not, like, a huge Nova fan. Like, I think I'm like, yeah, you're kind of annoying. But, like, in a game that fucks up so hard on so many things, Nova is very, 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 she's at the very bottom of, like, the list of things that Xillia 2 does wrong, you know?
Remember that bit in Veep where I think it's like the cook or the janitor is going around to everyone and like pointing out their flaws, and he gets to one guy and he's like, you're all right, but I do not like. Like, that's it. Like, in the big laundry list, like, we get to know, we'd be like, you're all right, but the other ones, no.
But you, the major theme of the game, I do not like. That is exactly what Nova is. She's just Mike from Veep, you know?
Pretty much, yeah.
Where it's just like, you're there, and you're kind of annoying, but you're not really a bad person.
Yeah.
And, you know...
She could have been worse. In a game that is worse, she could have been worse.
Absolutely. And because of it, you're just kind of like, I forgive her, because I just kind of forget she exists 90% of the time.
She's like, it's like how both of us like Yuffie because we hate Kate Sith so much.
Oh god, exactly. If Kate Sith didn't exist, I'd probably think Yuffie was more annoying. But, Kate Sith does exist, and so Yuffie is great in comparison. Yeah, that's what Nova is. Nova is, like, great. You know, she's not, like, awesome, but she's
Nova would
good.
be the worst thing in a better game.
Oh, yeah. 100%. If Xillia 2 was a good game, Nova would be the worst part of a better Xillia 2. You'd be like, God, this character, she'd be like another Colette or another Ivor, or another Ivor. More like another Ion.
Or whatever. Yeah.
You know, you'd be like, God, she really just doesn't do anything. She's just annoying. She exists to hinder the party. That's kind of what, you know, Colette and Ion do. But, like, in a bad game that Xillia 2 is, Nova is the least of my problems, man. Like, 100%. Nova is like, boy, if they would just... I'll handle Nova all fucking day if they would just fix the theming problem of this fucking game.
Yep.
You know? Yeah, fuck it. Yeah, 100%.
And the other, speaking of theming, the other plot point I want to bring up is this game's weird obsession with sea salt ice cream. I mean, tomatoes.
And cats.
Yeah. Like, you know, and like, you know, again, as a major Kingdom Hearts fan, I'm sure I'm going to get like, well, dude, you like Kingdom Hearts, but they do the same shit. Like, and I thought about it, like, there is a difference. The sea salt ice cream in 2 and 358 over 2 days it overall ties to the theme of the game way better than
tomatoes
the idea of tomatoes or cats do in X2. Like, tomatoes is supposed to be a running theme from previous games about there's always party members who hate tomatoes. It's supposed to key you in that Elle and Luger are more connected than you think because they both have a thing with tomatoes.
Right.
But it's just handled in a way that more feels like, you know, like, hey, look what we've got in the game, Right,
yeah. It feels more like they're just using objects in place of, like, actual concrete theming.
Whereas the idea of sea salt ice cream is supposed to it strongly represents a connection of friendship between Roxas and his friends. First, it represents his connection to Hainer, Pence, and Olette in 2, and then you find out there's also a deeper connection with Xion and Axel in Days, and like it's a representative thing, and it's handled way better in those games than it is in this game, where like the tomatoes thing, it feels like it's supposed to be like a combination of a running gag and like also a thematic element. And again, you can't have it both ways because then it feels awkward in both contexts.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I don't get the thing with cats.
Yeah, like cats have always been in Tales games. Like they've always been like a thing. But like it's never been so weird. Like I love puns, you know?
Yeah.
I fucking love puns a lot.
100%.
A lot.
I know you do. It's fucking awful.
The part where you talk to the cat lady.
Yeah. It's a little much.
I'm just like, my thought was, oh god, is this what it's like for everyone?
That's actually how I feel every single time you drop some shitty pun. How you felt in that moment is how I feel every single time I play an Ace Attorney game. So I hope you understand a little bit of what my world is like now. Like, I hope you understand me a little bit better now, Ben. Because, like, that's what my life is like all the time. Every time you drop some piece of shit pun, you asshole. Like, I feel that shitty I'm just like, ugh, this motherfucker. That's how I feel all of the time. Alright? You asshole. I fucking hate puns.
I'm looking at my hands like, what have I done?
I'm a monster!
Don't look at me! No, look away!
I'm horrible! Oh no! That's what you are. This is what you've inflicted on me, you piece of shit. Every single day. Fucking, I hate puns. I don't get the cat thing. I don't get it. I love cats.
Why Rolo, like, why they put so much emphasis on like,
Rolo? It's so weird.
Rolo gets more emphasis than, like,
most of the party.
Rapide or Noish.
It's weird because Rolo gets a lot of, like, screen time. Like, more so than some members of the actual party.
Yeah. Like, Rolo feels like he's more plot relevant than, like, Alvin or Elise.
And it's really weird, because he's a cat.
Yeah, he's
And not even a cool cat.
He's just a fat old cat.
Because he doesn't fight like Repeat. Like, at least Repeat.
And he's not a weird animal like No-ish.
Or like
he's...
and he's not
No-ish
useful.
Is cool because No-ish is tied to the lore of the series.
And
like, you can do a side quest where you find out what No-ish is, and you're like, oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And he's not, like, useful. I mean, like, Mew is annoying, but at least Mew has a purpose. Like,
and Mew ties to the central plot elements of
the game.
Of Abyss.
Yeah.
Rolo's just a cat.
He's just a cat that they bring everywhere. A big fat cat that they bring to, like, the most dangerous places.
Yeah, like...
And then they want me to take this game, like, really... And then they try to tell me this game is really, really serious. Like, you can't have it both ways.
Yeah. You think at some point, Luger would be like, you know what, I should leave my cat at home.
Yeah. When they're actually walking through, like, hell, as in the land of Canaan, and they still have the cat, maybe leave the cat at home, dude.
And it's not like, another RPG where, like, you have to bring him along because you can't go home. Like, Luger can go home whenever the hell he wants.
I check his mail all the fucking time in that game.
You can just drop the cat off. Like, I don't get why the cat has to be so important when the cat basically is an extension of L.
Why not just make L more
anything
important?
Rolo does could have also been done by other characters, or like
represented in another way.
Yeah.
Or
it's just so weird. This game's emphasis on tomatoes and cats again just feels awkward and forced, like everything else in the game.
I mean, everything else in everything about the game feels like weird and unnatural. Like these people have never actually written a Tales game before.
Yeah, you know what? It's like how Die Hard 3 was written as a Lethal Weapon movie, and that's why it's so weird compared to the other Die Hards. It's like, this feels like it was a plot written for another JRPG that they're like, well, we can turn this into a Tales. Or you know what? Or like Chrono Cross was supposed to be a different RPG.
Yeah.
And then they just attached the Chrono name to it, and like,
that's
Chrono
what
Cross
it feels
like.
Chrono Cross is good, unlike Xillia too. And somebody is gonna be like, Chrono Cross isn't good. Motherfucker, I will fight. I have had enough vodka tonight to say straight up, I will fight your fucking ass on how good Chrono Cross is, especially in comparison to Xillia 2. Don't even put those two games in the same fucking category, because Chrono Cross deserves better. At least Chrono Cross tried to do something new, unlike fucking Xillia 2. Alright, actually, those are two pretty similar ideas, because they're both about alternate dimensions. At least fucking Chrono Cross tried to do some really unique bullshit with its alternate dimensions, and it had new fucking maps, and new fucking music, and new fucking characters, unlike fucking Xillia 2. Xillia 2 is the worst fucking thing that's ever happened to the franchise, and it nearly made me not play Tales games ever again. That's how bad Xillia 2 is.
I just like... Fuck, man.
Fuck Xillia 2.
Fuck. I could... you know what? Like...
We could it's been 2 hours, I feel like I could go on for another hour.
Yeah, you know what? I really do want to do an LP with you.
I do. For sure. This. I mean, for sure. The next time you and I are in the same fucking room together, we will play Xillia 2 and, like, pinpoint, like, every single part of it, like, why it sucks. Because I hope I have, like, given, a modicum of an idea of why Xillia 2 is so bad.
Yeah.
But I could do more.
And I really... the reason I watched... I did another watch through of it, like, is because... I want to be wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I want to be like, holy shit, I forgot about this cutscene that justifies a lot of things.
Nope.
And it doesn't exist.
Nope.
It's exactly as I remember it. It's just this garbage game with a story that feels so awkward and depressing and, like...
manufactured.
Yeah, exactly. It feels so soulless compared to all the other Tales games, which just feel rich and developed, and you feel a sense of accomplishment when you beat them, and you feel hopeful for this world.
Yeah.
You know,
you feel
like
none of that.
every Tales game is, the formula is you go through this great adversity and you come out of it with a more hopeful world at the end. Mm-hmm. And, like, X2 doesn't have that feeling at all. It just feels so bleak. And, you know, it's almost like if the game had been, like, bleaker and more depressing, it would have been better.
Yeah, for sure.
But, like, it's just this kind of constant stream of
mediocrity.
Mediocrity and, like, melodrama.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, okay, yeah, I get it. I get it.
And it tries... I think you're right. I think if Xillia 2... You're super right. If Xillia 2 had gone more bleak, then it would have been a better game. Because, as it stands, it's weird to have the character... Right now, it's a really weird place where the characters do a really fucking horrible thing where they destroy an entire world of people with lives, and then they try to go have hijinks and write newspaper stories and find, you know, goofy ways to make Mila's friends like me, and Gaius hangs out with high schoolers and all this stupid shit, and then they do all this bleak shit. But if it had just been, like, 1000% just go full on, like,
if we had seen these characters who ended the first game on very positive notes, and we had seen them, like, get dragged through the mud and, like, try desperately to regain what they once had, like, that would be way more interesting. I'd probably be more bummed out at the end, but at least it would be something completely new.
It would have been something totally different and, like, really interesting.
It probably would have, like, tanked the company a bit and would not be as well received at all, but it would have been new.
And as it stands, Xillia 2 does next to nothing new.
Yeah.
It has no new character models except for a handful of new people. It has very few new areas. It literally exists for the sole purpose of recycling 85% of the original games. Actually, beg your pardon. It exists to recycle 100% of the original game's assets, and then adds a few new things on top of it, and tries to tell me that makes it an adequate sequel. No, sorry, Namdai, you fucking failed.
Like, it's one of those things where, like, it feels more like a spin-off than Dawn of the New World does. Mm-hmm. Like, and
Dawn
again,
of the New World is, like, majorly just a spin-off.
Yeah, Dawn of the New World is not a good game. Like, I'll be honest, like, it's not even worth mentioning. It's not even worth doing a podcast about. Like, I played it from start to finish. There were parts of it I enjoyed, there were parts of it I didn't enjoy, and there was a lot of parts where I thought were just kind of okay.
Yeah, it's not a game where you're like, Sarah, you need to play this, you know?
But, it tried, and it did something new, and it had a pretty interesting main character who went through a lot of development and didn't quite fit with the rest of the world, but he kind of didn't need to because he was supposed to be an outsider kind of thing, and it introduced a handful of characters that were actually interesting and exciting, and it did something new with the recurring characters, and it felt like an actual continuation of their story. And then X2 just feels like a completely different game that they copy and pasted the assets over.
Yeah, 100%. Like, that X2 does all of the moments in X2 where you think you're gonna get something, because I brought this up with you a lot. God, we've already talked for almost 2.5 hours, so I'm gonna try and keep this brief.
Yeah.
The moments in X2 where you think you're gonna get something, like, maybe new and interesting about the old characters. Like, for example, in Elle's world, I thought, we'll get to see a new Drizel. Because it's 8 years later and Drizel's gone through, you know, by the time in like the normal timeline, Drizel's already gone through this really traumatic thing where she's had her brother murdered. And she's obviously a different person for it. But she's trying to still be, like, her happy self. But in Elle's universe, Rowan's also been murdered, and her, like, kind of surrogate daughter has been murdered. because, she's raising Elise at this point, in Elise's storyline. So, this really fucked up thing has happened to her, and you think, I'm gonna get a chance to see something new and unique. I'm gonna get a chance to see a different version of Drizel than I know. She'll be 8 years older. We'll get to see this, and it'll be this cool opportunity to have an insight into this character, who's just a side character, but who's a pretty cool little side character, and we'll get a chance to understand her, and as a result, the world around her better. You'll get to see you'll get to see Cherylton in a new way. Nope. Drizel has confined herself to her manor, and otherwise Cherylton is completely unchanged.
Yeah, the party, even flat out brings it up.
Mm-hmm.
Because you go, in order to prove that you are 8 years in the future, you go to dig up the time capsule that you left. And that's where you get, an upgraded version of whatever weapon you dumped in there.
Right.
And, I think they ask, Rowan, do you want to go see Drizel?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, we can't afford to create a new model for Drizel.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what they said,
yeah.
That's exactly what it is. They did not... Oh, God. Okay, one more. And it really pisses me off.
Go for it.
Because I just, I'm a big Gaius fan.
Yeah.
So, in the timeline where Gaius and it's a super interesting thing, because Gaius has never shown in any of the games to have any kind of malice toward anyone, really. He hates the Olympians in X1, but it's really more like them as a whole and not like the people, He's just I hate your society, but you people I still want to, protect. But I have to choose my people over you people, because they're my people. But he's never shown to have any real malice toward anybody. But he seems to have... in one little throwaway dialogue, he seems to have a genuine amount of malice for the previous king of Azul, because he murdered him. But in that timeline, Gaius and the Chimeriad are working under the former king, and you think, holy shit, sweet, I get to see what this guy is like. And that's going to be really interesting, because that's going to be a really cool confrontation, because you kill the Chimeriad, and that scene is really, really poorly written, because none of those characters actually sound like themselves at all.
Yep.
But, okay, fuck it, whatever. You kill the Chimeriad and you move on. You're like, let's go to Candelar, let's see what the fuck is going on. And you're like, we're gonna at least get to see this asshole. You'll at least something kind of good is gonna come out of this, and you'll get to see this asshole. No. They are so shitty that they reused the model for the, Odin boss fight in the Epsil Ruins, and they just reskinned it.
Yep.
And that is the fight for that fractured dimension. You never once get to see the previous king, and they didn't even take the time to model a new boss.
Yeah.
That's how fucking shitty and lazy Xillia 2 is.
That's fan game levels of laziness.
Exactly.
Not laziness. Fan game levels of, ability.
Yeah, because fan games are not lazy. Fan games are just working with what they've got.
Yeah. It's something like that would be wow, in a fan game, you'd be like, wow, they took the work to retexture this boss, and they're recycling it, but you know what they did what they could.
Yeah, they don't have the time to make a new model.
In a full budget game like this, from the actual studio, and you don't even take the time to create a new asset.
To hire a new voice actor? Fuck you. Fuck you.
You know what? That's really what it is. This game is just... It's just designed... It's straight up we don't care enough to bother making new assets or to bother putting in the work for this.
Yeah. It's just a shitty... It is the definition. If you want to see... If somebody's like, hey, what does a shitty cash-in game look like? Look no further. It looks like this. It looks like this. This is what a shitty cash-in game looks like. Because Xillia 1 is one of the better-selling games in the franchise. Xillia 2 is just there to capitalize on it. And that's it.
It's there to make Namco Bandai a bit more money.
And they don't have that. They put in the minimum amount of work. They couldn't even bother to fully characterize their main character. That's how lazy it is.
You know what? fucking, if they had called this, like, Tales of Xillia Fractured Dimensions, and not Tales of Xillia 2, I would have been way more forgiving.
100%.
I would have been like, well, whatever, it's a dumb spin-off, who cares?
Yeah. Like Dawn of the New World.
But to have the gall to put a 2 on this?
Yeah, so that we can never get a real good Xillia sequel, like a proper one that we deserve, because Xillia is real fucking good.
Yeah, it's like how, like, 10-2 poisoned that well.
Yep.
And, like, I like 10-2, but we're never gonna get a 10-3 now.
Nope. God willing, anyways, because God, they'd fuck that up, too. Xillia 2 is so bad it retroactively makes Xillia 1 worse. It's the laziest piece of shit Namdai has ever produced. And it's just bad. I mean, that's all it boils down to. It doesn't understand its own theme. And it has no idea what it's trying to tell us. Does that sound about right?
That's basically it. Like, yeah, this game is so hypocritical that it undermines not only itself, but it also undermines its predecessor.
That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
A game that manages to make the previous game worse. That is an accomplishment. Good job, Xillia 2. The only thing you managed to do that I've never really ever seen another game or any piece of media do is make the previous title in your series worse by association. Because now all you can think when you look at the Xillia 1 characters is, wow, you turned into a bunch of fucking assholes.
Yep.
You learned nothing. Congratulations, you pieces of shit. I will pick the bad ending for Xillia 2 every fucking time. Because at least you get to see a really cool cutscene where everybody fights Ludger and you kill these pieces of shit and game over. Plus the game is over faster.
At least there's some catharsis there.
That's it. Fuck Xillia 2.
Fuck. Alright.
Do you feel better now?
Holy shit. I think this is our longest podcast.
Yeah, it is, but fuck this game. I could probably go for another 40 minutes just talking about how much it sucks.
I do feel much better, though.
I do.
God, it just... Sometimes you just got, like... we joked about this, but like, yeah, this isn't really a gorge. This is a purge.
It's a purge. It's like the opposite of a gorge in every single way. Where we just decide to vomit up everything we feel about this shitty fucking game. And I've never hated a game as much as I hate Xillia 2. Like, BioShock Infinite is a disappointment, but at least BioShock Infinite had the decency to have, like, some pretty cool set pieces, you know?
And, and the thing about it is, like, I think the reason I hate X2 more than I hate any other bad game I've played, and I've played some shit before.
Yeah.
Is because X2's gameplay was good enough to keep me going.
Yep.
When I played a bad game, I would be like, this game is bad. I'm going to stop playing it now.
Exactly.
But, like, I beat X2 from start to finish, and that makes me hate it more. Because I went through all of it, and now I have to deal with that fact.
I've beaten that game like twice. That's how fucking... Because I keep playing it thinking I'm going to find something in it that I like, and I just can't.
Yeah.
I like nothing about it.
Like, you want to do the bad ending? The only reason I ever want to replay this game is to do the ending where the heroes from older Tales games come and save the day.
Yeah, that is pretty good. Where the Fantasia guys,
That's my canon ending.
Yeah.
And then the real heroes came and fixed it all.
Man, we didn't even talk about Origin and Chronos.
Oh, for God's sake. Because what's there to talk about?
They're assholes.
They're there, you fight Chronos a few times, you don't fight Origin at all.
Because he's
Fuck
an ass.
off.
He's a fucking asshole, and he's the whole reason this fucking game exists. There we go. Origin is the final boss, should have been the final boss of Xillia 2, because he's the reason this whole fucking shit happened, and he never gets his.
It's all his fault, we never get to punch him in the face.
Because he's modeled to look like a little kid, who is just a blatant Kyubey ripoff, by the way.
Yeah.
The whole game is just a big, oh my god, we're never gonna stop talking about how much we fucking hate this game. This whole game, I'll die by this. This whole game is just Namdai capitalizing on the popularity of Madoka.
Because they have fucking Madoka costumes in it!
They've got fucking Madoka costumes in it. Kyubey is Origin is like a weird, fucked up Kyubey, and it kind of mixes with Kronos a little, because Kronos is like the asshole part of Kyubey, but like Origin just straight up looks like Kyubey. Then there's the fact that there's magical girl transformations, and overusing your magical girl transformations turns you into the monster that you were originally trying to kill. And there's even an epilogue part where the main character / Madoka and or Luger has vanished from existence as we know it, but then like their like surrogate time traveler friend, as in El or Homura, is what's left over, and they get to exist in a new world, and we need a fucking rebellion in Xillia 2 to show up and shake this shit up and be like, hey, fuck you. Yeah. I fucking hate this game. They can't even be original. God, I fucking hate this game. Okay. It's been 2.5 hours, and if anybody is still listening, send some fucking hate mail to Namdai for me.
Yeah.
Be like, don't ever do this to me again.
It has been 2 hours, and I'm now 1,000 years old.
It's been 84 years. I'm just... But I do feel better.
I do feel better, and like...
I do feel better.
Okay, we're done with Xillia as far as the podcast goes.
But we'll probably do an LP at some point.
Yeah, we'll probably do an LP of X2 at some point, but like... Between the two of us, we're not done talking about how much we hate X2.
Oh god, no. No.
But as far as the podcast goes, we're done, and hey, we're done with Tales games until we get through Xillia.
And Berseria, yeah.
Yeah. Until we actually either sit down and beat the game or finish watching the anime.
One or the
other. We're done with our Tales mini-series.
That's pretty crazy. I feel like at some point we'll need to like come back. We'll probably like in like if we're still doing the Gorge in like 2 years, God willing, we should like come back to the Tales games.
Yeah, totally.
You know, like in a few years, like if we're still doing this, we should come back to them and like do like a mini review of all of them and be like, how have our feelings changed about this game and this game? But for now, we're done with the Tales games because I finally got how much I hate Xillia 2 off my chest. I feel lighter.
Yeah.
I feel like my soul is cleaner. Mm-hmm. I feel like I should go like burn my mic to like purify it of all the evil that's contained inside it. Like I feel like I've stored all of the Xillia 2's evil inside of my mic, and now I need to go smash it and like send it out into the world, you know? Be like, goodbye forever, Xillia 2!
Viking funeral your mic.
Yeah, exactly. We'll put it on a boat and shoot an arrow at it and light it on fire and bye-bye. Goodbye forever, hatred.
So, special thanks to Visager for use of our background music. Link to his work in the description. If you want to email us about how right we are about X2, you can send us an email at thegorgepodcast.bsky.social.
If you want to try and tell us that X2 is awesome, eat my entire asshole. How's that sound?
Don't forget to also send in your Christmas stories or just your happy video game memories. We're doing our Christmas cast in 1 month.
If you try to tell me that your happy video game memories have anything to do with Xillia 2, I'm going to come to your house and punch you in the dick.
You can also send them on Twitter if they're short enough to our Twitter at thegorgepodcast. Link to both of those things in the description.
Seriously, Sarah, don't send me any good stories about Xillia 2.
Sarah, tell us about your other podcast.
We don't talk about how fucking awful Xillia 2 is in it. Hey, I'm in another podcast. It's called Big Gay Nerds because I'm a big gay nerd. It's an LGBT RPG podcast where we post once a week-ish. Where me and a bunch of other cool dudes sit around and we play tabletop games, and we're all pretty gay, and it's pretty cool.
we're about to start a really cool game soon that you guys will love because it's samurai western stuff. You should listen to it and tell us how awesome it is. Is that you whispering you should?
That's me whispering.
That's really creepy when I'm wearing headphones like that. Because all I can hear in the back of my brain is, you should.
I should have said nothing. I should have been like, whispering, what? No.
Because it's funny, because at the same time I heard a dog whimper, and I thought like, oh shit, is the dog talking to me? Have I finally lost my mind? Have I had too much vodka? I've definitely had too much vodka.
A little bit, yeah.
I should drink more vodka before podcasts, but that would get expensive.
It would be fun. I think next episode is Dishonored? Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet. Something I don't hate.
Unless we put MKX in there beforehand.
At some point. We need to get that
the next episode will be Dishonored 2. Sweet. Dishonored 1 and 2, actually.
Is there anything else?
I feel like there was, but I don't think so. No, okay, no. I think we did everything. Yeah, that'll do it for us then.
Cool. Hey, Ben?
Yeah?
Fucking Xillia 2!
Fuck Xillia 2.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.